We had a lovely visit today with the team from Sandals, led by Adam Stewart, the chairman of the Sandals Corporation.
I just wanted to welcome each and every one of you. You guys ready to join the world's best hospitality company?
Yes! Hi, I'm Kim Halvish, President of the St. Vincent and Grenadine Hotel and Tourism Association. Just happy to welcome the Sandals group to St. Vincent again today.
We just are so excited about being in your beautiful country. Your Minister of Finance, my good buddy now, invited me and my family down here some years ago.
That's right.
And it was like love at first sight. The natural beauty of the place, the vibe of the people, and people keep asking me, why St. Vincent? And it's kind of one of these things when you know. It just feels right. And we're going to do something here for tourism that is going to be truly, truly incredible. And each and every one of you are going to be a part of writing that history and that stories.
Beaches St. Vincent is going to be the first beaches facility built out in the Eastern Caribbean. We're hoping that we can see a significant amount of Vincentians being hired. There are 500 persons who will leave St. Vincent and the Grenadines to go off to sites in Turks and Caicos, in Jamaica, and Barbados, St. Lucia. And when they're trained, they will be returning to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, where they will be hired at the Beaches St. Vincent facility.
The training you get now is going to prepare you for either. It'll be your choice, whether you come home or whether you stay with us in other islands in the Caribbean, or if you decide to come back home, you'll be beyond prepared, more so than anybody else in tourism, for the roles and the positions here. The finished product of what we're going to create here will put St. Vincent on the world stage as one of the absolute top tourism destinations anywhere to go in the world.
Minister of Tourism, the Honorable Carlos James, visited during the recruitment process and shared how this highly anticipated expansion of the tourism industry in St. Vincent and the Grenadines will impact the economy and the country as a whole.
What would happen initially is that once the rehabilitative work is done on the new Beaches Resort, which is the old Bookament Bay Resort at Bookament, we will see Sandals immediately moving these trained persons back to St. Vincent, where they would have already received the training and the certification according to the Sandals standards, and they will then move immediately into their tenure of employment here on island. This is a fantastic opportunity, and tourism is a significant contributor to our gross domestic product. It's a significant contributor across the different sectors, including linkages and opportunities for farmers. Remember, Sandals said that they are looking to work with all of the stakeholders in the industry, but also outside of the industry, farmers and agro-processors who would supply them with fresh produce and seafood and the likes. And this is a fantastic opportunity for our country, and I'm happy to see this initiative bear fruit, and I must commend also the Minister of Finance, Camilo Gonçalves, who has been working closely with the Executive Chairman, Adam Stewart of Sandals International, to bringing this to realization. Now have St. Vincent as one of the leading Caribbean destinations, and people are excited to travel. They want to come to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and we have to create the environment, we have to create the atmosphere that would welcome persons here, and also within the COVID-19 protocols, but put in measures in place that can facilitate the relaunch of the industry that is going to see significant benefits to all of the stakeholders. It's about the trickle-down effect, it's about the economy and getting people back out to work and getting some significant income on the tables of the taxi operators, the tour operators, and everyone who's involved in the industry. And I'm quite excited about what is likely to be the relaunch of our tourism industry. But for now, Sandals, what they're doing is a starting point to that, and I'm quite excited about that as well.
The Honorable Carlos James, Minister of Tourism, Civil Aviation, Sustainable Development and Culture. The Honorable Camilo Gonçalves, Minister of Finance, Economic Planning and Information Technology. The Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Tourism, Civil Aviation, Sustainable Development and Culture. Ms. Dr. Risa Noel McBarnett. Mr. Vincent Vanderpool Wallace. Also, our keynote speaker for today, Dr. Akola Lewis Cameron, the chairperson for the SPG Tourism Association. Sorry, Tourism Authority, thank you, PS. Our cultural ambassador, Rodney Small, all invited guests, panelists, those who are in the hub, and all of you who are looking at us virtually, good morning, and welcome to the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Virtual Tourism Stakeholders Conference, Day 2. Yesterday we had an insightful day. I'm looking forward for nothing less today. At this point, I want to ask God's guidance on today's proceedings, and to do so, we ask Mrs. Jackie Jacobs to open us in a word of prayer.
Good morning, everyone. Let us pray. Dear God and Heavenly Father, your word says that we, his servants, will start the rebuilding, and they were encouraged to do this good work. We connect with you, God, as we reconnect another day at this conference. I lift up our nation for you to transform and renew the minds of everyone with your divine understanding of their responsibility and perception of tourism. As we come together as tourism partners, grant us your divine ability to embrace our challenges. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Jackie. You may have your seats. Just reminding folks that the theme for the Virtual Tourism Stakeholders Conference is Reconnect, Rethink, and Rebuild Stronger Together. At this point, I'd like to make welcome to the podium to bring welcoming remarks. Okay. All right. Change of plans? All right. So at this point, I'll invite the Honorable Camilo Gonçalves, Minister of Finance, Economic Planning, and Information Technology, to give us the economic outlook at this point. Please welcome him as he comes.
Thank you very much. I understand that the agenda is being modified a little bit because some of us have responsibilities in the Parliament today. I want to thank everyone for the opportunity to be here today. I want to congratulate Minister James and his team at the Ministry of Tourism, Civil Aviation, Sustainable Development and Culture for putting together this very significant Virtual Tourism Stakeholders Conference. Everyone who's participating, those of you here in the virtual studio, and those of you who are logged on elsewhere. A special big up to my friend, His Excellency, the Cultural Ambassador Rodney Small. Every time I see Rodney these days, I'm surprised to see him because he's been entertaining some of the largest celebrities in the world in the Grenadines. And I keep thinking that, and when I say the largest, I mean the largest. Think of a big celebrity and the people he's entertaining is a little bit bigger than the people you just thought of. So I keep thinking that somebody has stolen him away. So I'm always happy when I see him. I don't know if he's as happy to be seen because he's probably hoping that he was stolen away as well. But thank you all. I begin with a series of apologies. The first apology is that I was unable to be with you yesterday. The conference began on the day allocated for our weekly meetings of cabinet, and since the volcanic eruption, COVID, and Hurricane Elsa, it's very difficult to miss cabinet meetings because a lot of very important recovery work is being done, but I didn't want it to be misinterpreted as a lack of interest by the Ministry of Finance in this very important sector. My second apology is that, having said that and having apologized for not being here yesterday, I'm going to run away very quickly and leave you today, because we have Parliament beginning shortly. When this conference was originally scheduled, Parliament was supposed to be last week. So Minister James scheduled it for this week. Unfortunately, Parliament was rescheduled. My third apology is that I'm a little bit under the weather, so I'm not going to be able to speak as I would like to. And if I run out, if I jump up and run out, it's because I've seen the time and I have to answer questions in Parliament. Carlos, the Honourable Minister, has asked me to speak a little bit about the economic outlook. And without prejudice to anything that was said yesterday, because I wasn't able to listen to you yesterday, I'm reminded of the saying, who feels it knows it. And I think that the members of the hospitality sector in St. Vincent and the Grenadines feel very acutely the challenges that we felt in the economic climate of St. Vincent and the Grenadines since the onset of the coronavirus pandemic globally. And it has forced many of you to innovate and to seek new sources of revenue. It has forced you in many ways, as we say, to bang your belly and to try your best to ride out what has been a prolonged storm. I still remember when COVID began, people were saying this would be a 3-month thing, and that by the time the summer came, it would be gone. And instead, every time we turn on the news, we hear there's a new variant somewhere, and a new outbreak somewhere else, and a new challenge. And we really can't say with any level of confidence when the end is. But I want to thank all members of the hospitality sector for remaining engaged and staying in the sector during this very difficult time. It would have been very easy for many of you to lock up shop and go home and ride out the storm. In fact, many of you probably would have turned out better economically had you just locked up shop. But you remained open and active and employing thousands of Vincentians and contributing, albeit significantly smaller amounts, but contributing nonetheless to our economy. And I consider it a great act of patriotism in St. Vincent and the Grenadines that the hospitality sector was so able to do, because we in St. Vincent and the Grenadines do not have the large chains with deep pockets and the very wealthy multinational players in the hospitality sector who can ride out these things. We have a lot of small institutions, a lot of mom and pop operations, a lot of family businesses, and it's much harder to weather the extended downturn that you have weathered consequent on the pandemic. And I think that you've all been tremendous patriots, and I thank you all very much for your continued perseverance in the face of these challenges. I want to start with some numbers, and I understand that our feature speaker yesterday, our special guest and the minister, highlighted some very appropriate questions and concerns about data. But I want to compare apples and apples. So to the extent that the data is flawed, we're going to compare the flawed data across time and measure it in that sense. And I'll start with cruises. In the high period, cruise ship period, which is somewhere around November, somewhere around March, that's when most of the cruise ships come in. St. Vincent and the Grenadines has recently been getting 200,000 plus visitors in that window. From November 2018 to March 2019, it was about 220,000 visitors. In 2020, the year COVID hit in March. So we got most of our cruise season out of the way. November, December, January, February, things were normal. COVID hit in March, and that's when the cruise ships began to lock up shop. So we fell from about 220,000 to about 195,000. Not a tremendous fall off, but a fall off. And the month of March, we had 45,000 in March of 2019. We went from 45,000 to 15,000 in March of 2020. And that shows you what happened when COVID struck in March. But the next cruise season, we didn't have 220,000 in that period. We didn't have 200,000, we didn't have 150,000, we didn't have 100,000, we didn't have 50,000, we didn't have 10,000, we didn't have 5,000, we had zero. Not a single cruise ship, not a single passenger alighting, not a single person getting into a taxi, not a single person going to a tourism site, not a single person having a rum punch at Young Island or Paradise Beach. Nobody. So we went in cruise from 220,000 people to zero. That's what COVID did to the cruise sector. If you compare year on year, not season on season, because the season starts in one year and ends in the next year, we fell 60% from 2019 to 2020 in cruise ship passengers. From 255,000 to 101,000. If you count stayover visitors, we fell by 70% from almost 86,000 to 26,000. If you count yacht passengers, which was our most robust sector, we still fell over 50%, from 60-odd thousand to 26,000. And if you count total visitors, we went from 400 plus thousand to 150,000. We fell off by 62%. That's no joke. We've never experienced those types of declines year on year in the history of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It's never happened. And if you count revenue, which is where I come in, admittedly, data being flawed, but to the extent that it's been counted, the data suggests that the visitor expenditure was about $318 million in 2019, and it's about $100 million in 2020. And small countries like ours can't find $200 million overnight. It's a serious and debilitating challenge that we faced economically in the hospitality sector because of tourism. And it is not unique to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Across the Eastern Caribbean, there were similar declines, greater declines. We went from 5 million tourists in the OECS to about 1.5 million tourists, 1 year to the next. We went from $7 billion to about $2 billion in revenue. And when that shock reverberates throughout the OECS, we all feel it because we're all part of one currency union. And when the currency falls in Antigua or St. Lucia or St. Kitts, we feel it in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And our first quarter, that was year on year, 2019 versus 2020. Our first quarter of 2021, January, February, March, has been dismal. By the end of March, notwithstanding COVID, St. Vincent and the Grenadines had 144,000 visitors last year, first quarter of last year. First quarter of this year, we went from 144,000 visitors to 7,000 visitors. That's a 95% collapse of the hospitality sector. Instead of earning $91 million, as we did in the first quarter of 2020, we received less than $16 million in the first quarter of this year. 80% gone. But the salaries have to be paid, and the potholes have to be filled, and the volcano, which I'll get to, people have to be fed in shelters and kept together. Across Across the Eastern Caribbean, the decline was even more severe, if you can believe that, than in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Our 7,000 visitors that we got in the first quarter of this year is more than the combined visitors of Dominica, Grenada, and St. Kitts and Nevis. We got 7,000 visitors, but those countries got about 2,000 and a little bit each. Part of it because St. Vincent and the Grenadines never locked down, like some of those other countries did. And part of it because our yachting sector was slightly more buoyant. It's a bad metaphor, but slightly more buoyant than the other categories. St. Kitts and Nevis, Grenada, Dominica, not Grenada, but don't rely on yachting to the extent that we do. In St. Kitts, for example, St. Kitts and Nevis, their visitors went from 300,000 to 2,800. It's a 99% decline in tourism numbers. And that first quarter doesn't count the eruption of La Soufre volcano, which came in the second quarter, and doesn't count Hurricane Elsa, which came in the third quarter. So imagine how that quarter, I'm giving you first quarter data, but I'm sure when an airport is shut down for the volcano, and when nobody can come in and out because of the volcano, we can't expect better numbers in quarter two than we had in quarter one. For the remainder of this year, tourism is expected to remain depressed, and its prospects are strongly contingent on vaccination efforts locally and vaccination efforts in our source markets. And in our source markets, we're not doing badly. United States, United Kingdom, Canada, the European Union are all approaching what's called herd immunity. They're all north of 50%. Some of them, Canada, if you count first, and if you count those who are fully vaccinated and those who have had their first dose only, they're in excess of 70% already. Where are we? We are less than 15%. And that uncertainty about vaccinations, about new variants, about outbreaks, makes it very difficult to model what tourism is going to look like in St. Vincent and the Grenadines this year, or even regionally. The Eastern Caribbean Central Bank has numbers ranging from 500,000 visitors this year to 2 million visitors this year. All of that still far below the 5 million that we typically get. And all of it pointing to another difficult economic year in the sector. How are we going to deal with evolving protocols? Protocols that is one thing one week, another thing another week. How are we going to deal with cruise ships not requiring testing or vaccination as a region, not individually? How is our access to vaccine supply? How many of us are taking the vaccine when we get it in St. Vincent and the Grenadines? Because we have given away more vaccines than we have taken in this country. So it's not an issue that we, like some countries, we haven't had access, but it's that we've had vaccines and no takers. And it's always a sad thing when people turn down your vaccine in Trinidad and Tobago, in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, but line up for the same vaccine in Trinidad and Tobago. But that's a conversation that Carlos didn't ask me to discuss today. It means that as a region, the OECS will be fortunate to repeat the depressed and depressing numbers of 2020. However, locally, I gave you the OECS picture. Locally, there are some signs that St. Vincent and the Grenadines will probably slightly outperform the regional data. That St. Vincent and the Grenadines will do a little bit better than neighbors. One, because we're not as tourism dependent, so small movements mean more in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Two, because we never lock down. And three, because we have very enlightened and activist leadership in the form of the minister and his staff. In a year when we are going to now receive 224 cruise ship calls in this season, we should be happy, we should be grateful, because the year before it was 0. So that is one green shoot, one positive that suggests this year might be better than last year on the hospitality front. Similarly, starting in October, we'll be welcoming flights from the United Kingdom for the very first time in our history, with Virgin Atlantic commencing a weekly schedule beginning October 13th, Wednesday the 13th of October, which means that if you count all the Wednesdays remaining in the year, they'll come 12 times. And it's a big plane, biggest plane ever to land on a scheduled flight in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It's bigger than the AAs and the Air Canadas and the Caribbean Airlines that have been coming. So that'll be bringing up to 265 passengers each time it comes for the rest of the year, starting in October. The same Wednesday the 13th, American Airlines resumes its second weekly flight. I don't know how you're going to manage COVID testing on that Wednesday. We're having a hard enough time with one flight. But American Airlines resumes its second flight. A couple of weeks later, Air Canada resumes operations. And we're optimistic that Caribbean Airlines will also be resuming its New York run. So from a situation last year where you didn't have England, you had very reduced America, you had no Canada, you had no New York, all of those are coming back on stream this year, albeit late in the year. So that's a positive sign that we can celebrate. The good news is that neither the pandemic nor the volcano have dampened medium-term interest in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, or dampened the settled view that St. Vincent and the Grenadines is the rising hospitality destination in the region. On mainland St. Vincent, by 2023, so not next year, but year after, we will see the opening of a 350-room beaches resort, a 250-room Marriott resort, a 150-room Royal Mill resort, a 93-room Holiday Inn Express, and a boutique hotel, Myers Place, in the Diamond area, among others. And based on already announced and in progress developments, St. Vincent and the Grenadines is slated to have the largest increase in hotel room stock in percentage terms anywhere in the region. And that's mainland. We could go into the Grenadines. There are a series of exciting announcements coming on stream that the minister, I won't steal his thunder, in the Grenadines. And entities that just opened on the cusp of COVID. Places like Sandy Lane Yacht Club, places like the Liming, Soho House in Canawan. Well, the Canawan, I just said Mandarin Oriental, Sandy Lane, Soho House. Places in Beckway and a new island development that you'll be hearing about shortly are also expected to grow demand in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And we've had discussions with airlines about this upsurge in room stock, and some of the larger brands like Sandals, for example, have also had their own one-on-one meetings with the airlines, and the airlines have assured us that the The airlift will be available when the rooms are available. We're not going to be in a situation where we have a bunch of rooms but not enough planes to fill the rooms. We're timing it so that we'll have the airlift at the same time that we have the rooms. So it's very positive once you look over the very dark mountain of COVID that's immediately in front of us. The government is forecasting bounce back economic growth of almost 7% in 2022, based largely on anticipated pickup in tourism activity. Beyond 2022, we're anticipating that our investment in tourism infrastructure will pay greater dividends and that tourism will play an ever more significant role in our economic and employment prospects. While we have been working with you in the sector through COVID and through the volcano, including through income support to some of your staff members, various moratoria on various payments, attempting to utilize hotels as both COVID shelters and volcano shelters. I remember when we first began asking, a lot of hoteliers said, I don't want any COVID people, until the hotel was empty. And then they called back and said, well, maybe you could give us 100 COVID people. We wouldn't mind. Or I don't want any volcano people. Then they said, when the airport's closed, maybe we could take 50. We don't mind, you know, because it keeps the lights on. It keeps the lights on and it pays a bill. But we now see light at the end of the tunnel. And we have to now move from survival to considering all of the myriad opportunities for growth and income that exist in the sector once we get past COVID. And we can't wait to get past COVID to start planning for the uptick that will come once we get beyond COVID. And this government is putting its money where its mouth is. We are spending over $60 million of state money to build the Marriott Resort and the Holiday Inn Express. And we're spending millions more. I'm sure Minister James will discuss them if he hasn't already, to deal with local infrastructure, the Villa Beach hospitality area, Kim, the boardwalk, just approved, contractors selected and all the rest of it. So the boardwalk begins. New and refurbished sites nationwide. The government believes, because we're not fixing it now for it to mash up with no tourists and wait to fix it again. We believe the tourists will be back in 2022. We believe that we have to open back up. We believe that the world is ready to open back up. We believe that there's a pent-up desire for people to travel and to get out of their lockdowns. Coffee says, where will we go when the quarantine thing done and everybody touch road? Well, we believe that a lot of those people will come to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and we have to prepare now for that arrival. The government, because we see an uptick, because we are spending money, because we are anticipating economic growth of over 5%, close to 7% next year, we're reaching out to you, the local hotel sector, the local hospitality sector, to discuss your future plans and to see how we in the government can make your individual growth plans more attainable. Minister James, Invest SVG, and the Ministry of Finance are all very, very keen, seriously, to play a part in helping you to take advantage of these coming opportunities. It is in your interest, it is in our interest that you grow and you lift your head up. You've been under your shell, you've been hunkered down, you've been trying to survive this onslaught. But we believe that this year won't be good, but it's time to start looking forward to the next year. And we're also trying to twin hospitality service providers with some of the big brands that are coming in. St. Vincent and the Grenadines has never had big brands on the mainland. Sandals and Marriott and Holiday Inn. And there are a lot of providers here that have been very, very innovative and creative over the last few months in developing other streams of business. Some of you are doing boat charters, some of you have dive shops, some of you are doing farmers markets and nature tours and walking trails and all of these sorts of things. We want to twin you with these big brands to say, you guys, there's already a dive shop here. Maybe they can help provide you that service. Or there's already somebody with boats who can transport you from the airport to your hotel, and so on. And the government wants to facilitate these types of encounters because we're coming late to the tourism game, and we think that we can adopt some of the best practices because we've seen what's happened in other places, and we want to keep as much of this local as possible. But the single most important variable that we need you to help us with is vaccination. Because the sector will not recover if we don't get vaccinated. I just gave you the very rosy statement to say, oh, fantastic news, British Airways is coming, Air Canada is coming, American Airlines is coming, more flights from New York, all of them. Maybe not on every flight, but all of those routes will bring COVID to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And all of those routes are home to the Delta variant, which is the more contagious, more deadly variant. So it's one thing to celebrate it and say they're coming, so we're going to make a little money, eat a little food. But there's a flip side to that. If they come and meet an unvaccinated population, there'll be a spike. It will jeopardize lives. It will overcrowd hospitals. And it will force those same airlines that brought the COVID to terminate their flights. The biggest variable, which is why I say it's hard to model, the biggest variable is how vaccinated can we get. Some of you have worked creatively, some of you have worked aggressively, some of you have begged, some of you have bribed, some of you have cajoled, all sorts of different methods to try to get your staffs to vaccinate, and some of you have done very well. I have proposed to Minister James and Minister Caesar, the Minister of Labour, to get all employers together, big employers outside of the sector and sector employers, to share best practices, share ideas about what it is that works and doesn't work in getting people vaccinated. Because if we don't get vaccinated, it's absolutely impossible to predict where the sector is going, and it's absolutely impossible for me to stand in front of you and say things will improve, because it'll just take a couple of people to get through the screening mechanisms, to go to the wrong party, to talk to the wrong local on the wrong beach, and the whole thing will fall down. So the economy of St. Vincent and the Grenadines at this point, your sector at this point, all of our civil service salaries and infrastructural budgets and everything depend on people getting vaccinated. And it depends on the tourism sector being vaccinated as soon as possible. Virgin coming in October? That's what? 12 weeks from now? How long between your first and second dose? 10 weeks? 8 to 10 weeks? You have 3 weeks to get the country vaccinated before the first BA comes. Sorry, Virgin. God forgive me. Can't say BA in front of Virgin. Before the first Virgin comes. We have to get to work on that. It's crucial. It is the linchpin of all our economic prospects. With that caveat though, with all of the positives, the message is that St. Vincent and the Grenadines, as the entire Caribbean, we experienced, and COVID ushered in a dark, dark night in hospitality. But, it's good news, joy cometh in the morning. And the flights are coming back, the boats are coming back, visitors are coming back, the yachts are coming back, the rooms are increasing, the economy will be growing next year, albeit growing out of a hole, but growing. All we need are for all of us to partner together to make sure that we are ready for the new world of post-COVID hospitality. And the first step is to get people vaccinated, to adjust your protocols, to understand which bubble connects to what bubble, and how we can move people around. In a multi-island state with a very unique tourism product, while still keeping Vincentians and tourists safe. That's the linchpin of this. But there is real reason for cautious optimism. Minister James's enthusiasm and drive are infectious. He's committed to this. He believes in tourism in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And I believe that the economy of St. Vincent and the Grenadines cannot get back up on its feet in the wake of all of the challenges we've faced, natural disasters, pandemics, all of it, unless we have a strong, vibrant, nimble, agile, active tourism sector. We are here to help you. We want to work with you, and we can do this together. So that would be my message, but it's a positive one, in spite of all the caveats that I said. Thank you very much for the time, and forgive me, because I'm going to run almost immediately. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Minister, the Honorable Camilo Gonçalves, for that insightful economic outlook in our small island state of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Of course, it looks quite bleak, but there are ray of hope, and we have to capitalize on that. Yes. Yes, of course, we have to recluse the minister. He has to go to Parliament. The Honorable Carlos James would have to leave shortly as well. So we'd have to target our questions mainly to Vincent Van der Poel Wallace. All right, so we have a few questions from yesterday. And let's see. Okay, so apparently your speech was so insightful. There are tons of questions. Yes, which is good. This one comes from Dr. Todd Lewis. He says, "Thank you, Mr. Van der Poel Wallace. I would like to hear your views on the way forward on bridging the gap to ensure that tourism is inclusive and extended to all Vincentians." There's one right there.
Do you mind repeating it in full?
Sure.
Sorry. Thanks.
So I would like to hear your views on the way forward on bridging the gap to ensure that tourism is inclusive and extended to all Vincentians.
Oh yes, I think we spent a lot of time on that yesterday, making sure that one of the opportunities that I always see as a very positive is an island nation and also small population, relatively small population, in terms of being able to communicate quite quickly and extensively and frequently to the members of the population. And I think the more people come to understand the value that they can receive from tourism in the broadest possible sense, the more they become engaged independently in the way they're going. I mean, you know, in my opinion, the real genius of any tourism destination is people acting independently in a coordinated way. The only way you get people acting independently in a coordinated way is when everybody understands what the plan is, what's in it for them, and how they can engage and extract good value from it. So to my mind, that is really the intent of communicating regularly, frequently, what the plan is, how they can become engaged in it, and how they can get great value and benefit from it.
Thank you very much. Another question that was posed, are there any plans in place to, that one is for the minister, sorry, but he's not here. So Mr. Van der Poel Wallace mentioned an important point on unique and appealing. A topic of contention by visitors is that of our whaling blackfish culture. What are the plans in place by the relevant stakeholders to chart a way forward? Would any of us be interested in taking that question? Okay. You plead the fifth? All right. All right. Okay. Okay, I think that is it for Wallace. I have some questions for, thank you very much, sir.
Okay.
I have some questions for the Minister of Culture. Maxine, would you be inclined to take these questions at this point? Or should we move right along with the agenda? PS? Move along. All right, moving along then. Thank you so much for your questions, and we appreciate your engagement in our conference. Okay. So moving along, at this point we'll have some promotional videos from the Ministry of Tourism and the SVG Tourism Authority.
We had a lovely visit today with the team from Sandals, led by Adam Stewart, the chairman of the Sandals Corporation.
I just wanted to welcome each and every one of you. You guys ready to join the world's best hospitality company?
Yes! Hi, I'm Kim Halvish, President of the Medicinal Grenadine Hotel and Tourism Association. Just happy to welcome the Sandals group to St. Vincent again today.
We just are so excited about being in your beautiful country. Your Minister of Finance, my good buddy now, invited me and my family down here some years ago.
That's right.
And it was like love at first sight. The natural beauty of the place, the vibe of the people, and people keep asking me, why St. Vincent? And it's kind of one of these things, when you know, you know. It just feels right, and we're going to do something here for tourism that is going to be truly, truly incredible, and each and every one of you are going to be a part of writing that history and that stories.
Beaches St. Vincent is going to be the first beaches facility built out in the Eastern Caribbean. We're hoping that we can see a significant amount of Vincentians being hired. There are 500 persons who will leave St. Vincent and the Grenadines to go off to sites in Turks and Caicos, in Jamaica, and Barbados, St. Lucia. And when they're trained, they will be returning to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, where they will be hired at the Beaches St. Vincent facility.
The training you get now is going to prepare you for either. It'll be your choice, whether you come home or whether you stay with us in other islands in the Caribbean, or if you decide to come back home, you'll be beyond prepared, more so than anybody else in tourism, for the roles and the positions here. The finished product of what we're going to create here will put St. Vincent on the world stage as one of the absolute top tourism destinations anywhere to go in the world.
Minister of Tourism, the Honorable Carlos James, visited during the recruitment process and shared how this highly anticipated expansion of the tourism industry in St. Vincent and the Grenadines will impact the economy and the country as a whole.
What would happen initially is that once the rehabilitative work is done on the new Beaches Resort, which is the old Buckerman Bay Resort at Buckerman, we will see Sandals immediately moving these trained persons back to St. Vincent, where they would have already received the training and the certification according to the Sandals standards, and they will then move immediately into their tenure of employment here on island. This is a fantastic opportunity, and tourism is a significant contributor to our gross domestic product. It's a significant contributor across the different sectors, including linkages and opportunities for farmers. Remember, Sandals said that they are looking to work with all of the stakeholders in the industry, but also outside of the industry, farmers and agro-processors who would supply them with fresh produce and seafood and the likes. And this is a fantastic opportunity for our country, and I'm happy to see this initiative bear fruit, and I must commend also the Minister of Finance, Camilo Gonçalves, who has been working closely with the Executive Chairman, Adam Stewart of Sandals International, to bring in this to realization. Now have St. Vincent as one of the leading Caribbean destinations, and people are excited to travel. They want to come to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and we have to create the environment, we have to create the atmosphere that would welcome persons here, and also within the COVID-19 protocols, but put in measures in place that can facilitate the relaunch of the industry that is going to see significant benefits to all of the stakeholders. It's about the trickle-down effect, it's about the economy and getting people back out to work and getting some significant income on the tables of the taxi operators, the tour operators, and everyone who's involved in the industry. And I'm quite excited about what is likely to be the relaunch of our tourism industry. But for now, Sandals, what they're doing is a starting point to that, and I'm quite excited about that as well.
Good customer service is essential to the tourism industry in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Hi. Hello. Excuse me.
Treat your customers with respect and resolve issues amicably. Good customer service means being polite, attentive, honest, and putting the needs of the customer first.
Hi, good afternoon. Can I help you?
May I have a beer, please?
What? But I was here first, and you just went and served him?
Tourism is everyone's business.
Sorry for keeping you waiting. The bar was so busy. However, can I offer you a drink on the house?
Tourism is everyone's business. Yeah. Live it, love it, embrace it.
Beautiful white and black sand beaches, lush mountains and valleys, rivers, hidden waterfalls, and multiple islands and islets. St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We are a friendly people, welcoming tourists from all over the world with exotic boutique and luxury hotels and a hospitable business environment. Let's make all tourists welcome at our international airport, on cruises, on yachts, on sailboats, on land and sea tours, at beach lines, at our restaurants, shops and bars, and at our national festivals. St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Tourism is everyone's business. Live it, love it, embrace it.
Tourism is everyone's business. Yeah. Live it, love it, embrace it.
Good customer service is essential to the tourism industry in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Engage your customers politely and with respect. Stay within the guidelines of the Taxi Association and perform best practice when engaging the customer. Await your turn. The dispatcher will beckon you to your next customer. Approach the customer one at a time. Show a positive attitude and do not rush them.
Have your customers' best interests at heart. Let them feel welcomed and satisfied. Be available, reliable, and willing to help at all times.
Tourism is everyone's business. Yeah. Live it, love it, embrace it.
Welcome back to the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Virtual Tourism Stakeholders Conference. Indeed, we have to live it, love it, embrace it as all of us come together to make this the product that is memorable and special to our visitors. At this point, we will have a presentation by a good friend of mine, Mr. Kevin Rodriguez, storytelling. Welcome, Uncle Sam.
Yes, when you go to Rome, you have to do like the Romans do. Girl, if you meet them, I jump on 1 foot, girl, jump on 1 foot too. Sing the song. When you go to Rome, you have to do like the Romans do. If you meet them, I jump on 1 foot, girl. Yes, jump on 1 foot too. Ah, you look good today. Yes. Amy, Mac me, Daddy Joe, oh, compe dudu Mac. Me a put one story to all you. All you tell me what all you think about that. Sometime before COVID, a grand girl come spend some time with me. Me tell she me mind, me tell she mama, me now want she back by me place. So she pack up she bag and she go back a foreign. But after a while, sense hit she head and she realized, Uncle Sam, you know, I'm missing out on all the good time in a St. Vincent. So I say, girl, no mind. You still have more time on your side because you're young and you're genge, and I want you to spread the news to the world. So I tell she, next time she come back, we're going on an adventure across St. Vincent and the Grenadines. You know, we have 32 islands, ain't it? You know that? Well, me I tell all you now. And guess what? Here where we going to start. I'm going to take she for we do some diving. You know what? Uncle Sam have an expertise, a PhD in diving, you know. When they see a taxi under the water down there and she see the beauty of the creation, Mike, she going to tell the whole world, listen, I have to come St. Vincent to experience the best sailing waters in the world. So she say, Uncle Sam, that sound good. So she says she gonna walk at a picnic. I say, what picnic? No, I mean, sorry, a bikini, sorry. So she gonna look good when she lay down and we white sand down in the Grenadines. So I tell you, yes, girl, we have plenty choices, plenty islands down there. And she said to me, Uncle Sam, you know, I want to get married too, you know. I said, really? Girl, I want to get married? Me say, bring a black fella when you come in here. But you have plenty choices, you know, for wedding, you know. Plenty choices for wedding. So guess what? I tell she, I will pay for one of the islands in the Grenadines. Right? Because you have Palm Island, you have Mustique Island, you have Canawan. I tell she I have plenty bank, you know. But she didn't know the young bank them are talking about, alright? So, I tell she, for the best wedding, castaway wedding, I will take you to some of the most luxurious places that we have. It's an exotic island with an abundance of choices. She said, Uncle Sam, guess what? Hey, that sound good. Well, the last time she came by me and Rodney Small, and me and Rodney Small take the girl down the road and try to give the girl some nice Vinci food, you know. We gave she some roast beef fruit, some roast tenner, some roast eddy, and she cut she and said she want fast food, you know. But this time, she said, Uncle Sam, I hear about the blackfish and the chichi cake and, you know, all them kind of local food. I want to experience it. We say, come, me girl, we have plenty choices. Now, me not a sailor man, because the last man me know who try for sail he end up in the belly of the whale. So me just stop a land. You understand? So, this time, I promise you, I'm going to give her an experience of the experience of the experience of the experience. Listen, we have the most majestic of all elements of creation, the La Soufrière volcano. Guess what? This experience is waiting for every single soul to experience. Guess what? It is called the womb of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And it is a lovely hiking experience. Come, let me go, girl. I know you're going to enjoy it. But guess what? Me not bother with all you know. This time around, when she come, you know, me know that this girl would not want to leave. So I plan to tell she you have choices at many of the hotels them that she couldn't stay. But by the way, I'm moving on. Me don't pack me bag. If you notice, I'm well dressed and I'm ready to go. I'm going sailing in the Grenadines. Again, experience the experience of the experience.
Give it up for Uncle Sam, the man himself, Kevin Rodriguez. And of course, he would have talked about the sights and scenes and experiences here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, second to none. Indeed, the Caribbean you're looking for. At this point, we want to introduce our keynote speaker for today. Akola Lewis Cameron is currently Dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences at the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine, Trinidad. Her educational achievements include a Master's in Hospitality and Tourism Education from the University of Surrey and a PhD in Tourism from the Brunel University in the UK. Akola's teaching experience in tourism planning and policy and marketing and her research and consultancy in the above areas have provided an all-rounded understanding of the industry. She is the lead editor of the text, Marketing Island Destinations, Concept and Cases, and co-author of the text, Caribbean Tourism, Concepts and Cases. Please make welcome virtually Miss Akola Lewis Cameron.
Thank you, moderator, for today's session. Let me just make sure that you are hearing me clearly. Okay, great. So let me just start by saying a pleasant good morning to the Minister of Tourism, Civil Aviation, Sustainable Development and Culture, the Honorable Carlos James, Minister of Finance, Economic Planning and Information Technology, Honorable Camilo Gonzalez, Madam Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism, Vincent Van der Poel Wallace, other distinguished members from the ministry, as well as the Tourism Authority. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to be with you this morning just to share my thoughts under the theme, Reconnect, Rethink, and Rebuild Stronger Together. And I really wanted to continue the conversation that was started yesterday by looking specifically at innovation in the face of a crisis. And I want to thank Vincent for that inspiring talk, as he has certainly paved the way for much of what I would like to share this morning. I always look forward to hearing Vincent, as he has a way of inspiring us to do better, to look at things differently, to leverage what makes us uniquely Caribbean. And so I want to jump off from a point that he made yesterday that is so apt at this time. And that is when he said, changing our descriptor as a region from the most tourism-dependent region in the world to the most competent tourism region in the world. And I dare say this morning that SVG is well positioned to pioneer this change. And we will talk more about that, more about the how, as we go along. And so, by way of the context, right, in general, we know that the year 2020 has left us somewhat battered and bruised as Caribbean nationals, as we witnessed the largest disruption to a growing Caribbean tourism sector as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. An unprecedented decline in GDP contributions by travel and tourism, amounting to a loss of some $33.9 billion, was recorded by the World Travel and Tourism Council. Travel and tourism employment also fell by about 24.7%, affecting the most vulnerable in our Caribbean society. And then, of course, in the St. Vincent and the Grenadines context, the minister painted the economic picture for us just a while ago. And then coupled with, of course, the COVID pandemic, we had the eruption of Soufrière. And so SVG finds itself in what we can call a perfect storm. Two major crises that have impacted the natural environment and has caused deep economic or deep socioeconomic disruptions. How SVG emerges from these crises can be a significant example of best practice in a crisis. And that is what we want to kind of zero in on this morning. And just to start, of course, by way of that sort of background, I came across a powerful quote by an Anne McCalhy, former chair of Xerox, which says, when you have that window of opportunity called a crisis, move as quickly as you can, get as much done as you can, as there is a momentum for change that is very compelling. And it is that momentum for change that is sweeping the global tourism sector. It's breaking the age-old traditions of unsustainable tourism growth and ushering new perspectives on smart, inclusive, and what we call regenerative development. And in this current crisis, both consumers and providers are welcoming change, and they are responding rapidly, and they are willing to go through steep learning curves to make it happen. And so when we think about this momentum of change, it calls for innovation. And that, you know, that proverbial thinking outside of the box, or some people might say, you know, break up the box altogether. And so that word innovation has been bandied about by many persons and in numerous forums, and perhaps you may be a little wary of hearing the term. But permit me just to indulge you a little further on the matter. And I want to define innovation going forward using one word: change. Now, you know, as human beings, we don't always easily embrace change. And unfortunately, change is oftentimes forced upon us, leaving us without a choice to do what is needed. But while we may not be creatures of change, I dare say we are creatures of opportunity. And as the saying goes, crisis brings opportunity and change. And added to this, there's this phenomenal quote from Steve Jobs that says, innovation or change is the ability to see the change as an opportunity and not a threat. And so a crisis that disrupts the daily routine of lives and businesses, it allows us to be more flexible. It allows us to be more open to these opportunities that we may have usually just dismissed due to our beliefs, our structures, and our routines. Essentially, a crisis allows us to recognize that change is possible, innovation is possible. And during a crisis, we suddenly see that what we never thought possible to change can actually change. And so when we talk about innovation in tourism can be done through product innovation. You may hear the term with new products and services. You may hear the term process innovation, which refers to new ways of delivering your tourism services. And others also talk about logistic innovation, which refers to new ways of supplying your products and services to the customers. And then, of course, there is market innovation, which is focusing on new ways of marketing and consumer behavior. Right? So you have all these different perspectives of innovation. Right? But simply put, an innovative mindset is what is required to generate ideas and solutions. Ideas and solutions that work to capitalize on opportunities that can actually translate into monetizable products, services, and business practices that will aid in the recovery efforts and in making the destination sustainable once more. And so what we want to talk about over the next couple of minutes is, well, what does tourism innovation in a crisis mean for St. Vincent and the Grenadines? And just bearing in mind that, you know, when we're talking about innovation, we're just focusing on that one word. It's about change. So I want to just go through a couple innovation tips, if you like, innovation guidelines, innovation thoughts. And the first, I think the starting point really is that innovation is redefinition. And a crisis provides an opportunity for the destination to redefine its starting context. And by that I mean, it gives the destination an opportunity to consider the space that you want to occupy in the market, to determine what you want to be known for. St. Vincent and the Grenadines indicates in their tagline, the Caribbean you're looking for. after having considered the eruption of Soufriere, coming through this pandemic, have you defined what that Caribbean looks like post-COVID, post-Soufriere eruption? Okay. And just to give an example of destinations that have redefined themselves, destinations that have looked at the situation they find themselves in and considered, when I look to the future, coming out of these crises, how do I see myself? And I want to give the example of Paris. And Paris, their plan is to invent the future of tourism and to be the capital of tourist innovation. And they decided that they'll do this through the creation of a Welcome City Lab, which is a program designed to stimulate innovation in the tourism sector, including the world's first incubator dedicated to this sector. And so the Welcome City Lab's innovation platform offers tourism startups and entrepreneurs an enabling portfolio of services, including co-working, a meeting space, test platform. And so since its creation, the incubator has already enabled more than 100 startups through its incubation program. And they have generated 650 jobs and raised more than 150 million euros. Closer home, just next door, Dominica has, coming out of that Hurricane Maria experience, they have redefined themselves, and their goal is to become the first climate resilient country in the world. And this is directing all their plans, directing all their strategies. And so innovation is about redefinition, redefining your space, making it known, and rallying your stakeholders around that space. Right? As mentioned several times yesterday, what is it you're after? Making sure that everyone is aware of what it is you're after and playing their individual parts in ensuring that that particular goal is achieved. The other point leading on from that is that innovation is data-driven. Change requires data. And of course, Vanderpool Wallace mentioned it yesterday about the importance of immigration data. Right? And that's just one type of data that, of course, can make the world of difference for the destination in terms of innovation. Innovation, change, redefinition cannot be effectively achieved if it is attempted in the absence of timely, comparable, and granular data. This approach means that you will be making more decisions based on the increased amount of data available via both your traditional and non-traditional data sources. And so this will require a shift in your decisions just from creative intuition towards more data-driven approaches. In a crisis, this is one of the foundational elements of innovative actions and is relatively inexpensive due to the availability of raw data via social media, through tools such as Google Analytics. And just to give an example, a recent report by Booking.com, and this is just one report of several reports, indicates a growing demand for sustainable travel. And it reveals that 61% of travelers want to travel more sustainably in the future due to the pandemic. Findings indicate that 69% are committed to reducing the carbon footprint of their trip or pay to offset this whenever possible, and look forward to actively participating in energy, water, and waste reduction activities at the destination. There's also an increasing demand for more environmentally modes of transportation. Right? We also see coming out of that report that there is this rise of the conscious traveler, someone who is far more discerning about the journeys they go on. Those who are willing and able to be away from home for longer. They're more appreciative of local people, less reckless in their spending. These individuals want more unorthodox experiences that involves engagement with local communities in a safe and respectful manner. The report also goes on to say they are driven by a need to volunteer and give back to a worthy cause. And they truly desire the off the beaten path experiences that enhance their health and wellness. And this is just an example of the data that's out there, and also an example of how the market is changing. And so for destinations, what is critical is adjusting your tourism product to new preferences, adjusting where you see yourself in terms of meeting your target market is critical for destinations to fully participate in a global recovery of the tourism sector. You need that data to redefine yourselves. You need that data in order to ensure that you're meeting the needs of your target audience. So innovation is data driven. Another point that I want to reinforce from yesterday as well is innovation is collaboration. Change requires collaboration. It's quite easy to be discontented and disconnected over many things during a crisis, because at the end of the day, the normalcy of life, business, governance has been turned upside down. The sobering reality is that there is no other route to be taken if the destination is to recover quickly and impactfully. All stakeholders at all levels are needed. Your ideas, your solutions, your investments, your constructive critique, your commitment. Just to draw on an example from Thailand. Thailand is known as one of the most resilient tourism destinations. Why? Central to Thailand's ability to recover quickly from both real and perceived crises affecting their reputation or the perception of Thailand as a destination has been the commitment by all travel industry stakeholders to maintaining collaborative relationships and its preparedness to engage in effective crisis communications from the outset of a crisis. To their credit, also is the speed of response and the ability to marshal the collaborative involvement of a geographically and sectorally diverse group of stakeholders. And the key takeaway from that Thailand example is having that common goal and stakeholders knowing their roles and rallying around that common goal. So innovation is collaboration. It goes without saying that innovation is digitalization. And when we think about that, it's critical to look at it from two perspectives. The first perspective is, if you are not online, you are not on sale. Visitors must be able to find you when they search for you. Right? And this is specifically speaking to the industry stakeholders. You have to be easily found when visitors are looking for you on the internet. The other point is, digitalization of tourism services is everyone's business, from the tourism planner to the less technology plays a critical role or a special role in the hospitality sector, especially during this time and in the future. What we are seeing now is investments in digital keys and smart hotel rooms to provide better and more comfortable service, right? Which gives our visitors a source of confidence and security, not just for the visitors, but for the staff, for management. Many tourism enterprises globally are doing less expensive adjustments, such as reformatting their websites to allow for more autonomy in trip planning, and are establishing and strengthening partnerships with digital payment service providers. And I think that the key point here is ensuring that you make it easy for the visitors to find you, to engage with you, to connect with you, and ultimately, of course, to dip into their wallets and choose SVG as their option. But this can only be facilitated through digitalization. The fourth point is, and it's something that, again, I want to reinforce from yesterday, innovation is experiential. As the minister indicated yesterday, visitors to the Caribbean are no longer fully satisfied with laying on a beach with a Caribbean rum punch in their hands. Instead, they want simple but authentic and unique experiences that they can boast of upon their return home or post on their social media pages. As the Booking.com report indicated, visitors want to be engaged. Right? And what does that mean? They want to be immersed in a series of memorable travel activities that involve all their senses. They want to connect. They want to connect with the people. They want to connect with the place. Visitors want to engage in storytelling as the destination provides them with that story. Right? And so the question really is to our stakeholders, what stories do you have to tell in this? What stories do you have to tell in this period that are unconventional, that are authentic, and that are experiential? And then ultimately, how can you package it into a monetizable tourism offering? And so this requires going beyond what is obviously touristic in nature. And, you know, I recall my most memorable experience in visiting Beckway. And this would have been in 2014 on a boat trip. I think we were coming from Beckway, coming back to the mainland. And while I thoroughly enjoyed Beckway, I mean, beautiful island, what was my most memorable experience was my encounter with this boat operator. This boat operator, he was telling me all about the whale watching package that he offers and the whole experience of whale watching. And it was to hear the passion. It was to hear the love. It was to hear this man's story, how he became this boat operator and how he engages his guests and how this thing impacts his livelihood. I mean, that thing just stayed with me, and I share this all the time, because as much as the physical environment of Beckway was beautiful, my connection with that boat operator is really what stayed with me the most. And so for industry stakeholders, this requires a shift in actually how you approach crafting of your experience. And so when you're thinking about what you have to offer, I want to suggest that you think about what makes your community special, what it is about the people, the places, the stories, the traditions. When you're thinking about, you know, how you package your experience, is not asking the question what activities you have to offer, but shift that thinking to what memories do you want your visitors to leave with, right? Shift the question to what are the traveler interests that are aligned with what you have to offer, right? Think about what do I need to who do I need to collaborate with to create an engaging visitor experience? Think about how can this experience be personalized, right? And then think about what unique local treasures can be celebrated, can be showcased, can be engaged in. And that is the sort of change of approach that is required in this time of a crisis. Not just what you have to offer, but what do you want the visitor? What is that memorable experience you want the visitor to walk away with? And so your uniqueness, and this was a question that came up yesterday, what makes you unique? You know, your uniqueness lies in that combination of your assets, which are both natural and human, and telling your story. So leading off that, you know, innovation is also an accurate response to your target market. And what we see is that forward-thinking destinations are putting those archaic marketing tactics to bed. And they're choosing instead to test newer, smarter strategies that speak to travelers, that speak to them beyond liking, commenting, and sharing on a Facebook page, on a post, with an end goal to travelers of getting them into their wallets. It's about connection. And how do you use the tools available to you? Those digital tools, the whole social media platform, to create that connection with the visitor. You don't just want them to like and comment and share. You actually are going after establishing that relationship with the consumer. And we can learn from that, from our sister island, Dominica example, following the devastation of Hurricane Maria. Of course, you know, Dominica is positioned as a nature isle of the Caribbean, which was stripped bare of their natural asset, which is that vegetation post the hurricane. And as expected, tourism arrivals plummeted sharply in the immediate aftermath of the hurricane, resulting in 33% decline in 2018. Dominica bounced back, experiencing an increase in arrivals in the fourth quarter of 2018, and then a further 15% increase 10 months later. That level of recovery that we saw in Dominica was uncommon with countries which have suffered the magnitude of a devastation that Dominica experienced. But what it is about Dominica, they exhibited flexibility and adaptability, supported by innovative and creative, technologically driven actions which appeal to their travelers and appeal to the travelers' love for the destination. And that is what prompted that swift return to the destination. So although 90% of the island's vegetation was destroyed, the tourism recovery strategy continued to leverage on that destination's reputation as the nature isle of the Caribbean. And you know what they did? They invited persons to engage in voluntourism, and which allowed them to rebuild the natural assets that were ruined. Right? So what they did was they reached out, they connected with those travelers who valued the natural environment and who were committed to building back with Dominica. And so the crisis communications were robust. They used an effective digital communication strategy where they were disseminating daily updates through a dedicated website. They were correcting the negative perceptions and the falsehoods, and they were appealing to the nature lovers' passion to aid in the rebuilding process. And essentially, these innovative efforts fostered continued visitor interest in the destination and really compelled them to support the destination during and after the crisis. They responded to their market accurately. They connected with those who had similar interests to the destination. And as I come to a close, the last point I want to make about innovation, and I think, you know, it's a point that sort of resounded with everybody yesterday, is that innovation pivots on the people. Nothing moves without the people. We can only innovate if we invest in our own. And so the citizens of the destination are the core. I think Vincent made that point very clear yesterday. And I want to re-emphasize that point. A destination's innovative capacity depends on its talent pool and its commitment to building knowledge and competencies, one individual at a time. Right? Innovation can only happen if it pivots on the people. And so, ladies and gentlemen, in closing, to the Ministry of Tourism, to the Tourism Authority, you are the enablers of innovation. I encourage you to create an environment for change for all your stakeholders. To the industry stakeholders, you are the drivers of innovation. And so together, St. Vincent and the Grenadines can set the standard as a competent destination that knows how to embrace innovation in the face of a crisis. Thank you.
Dr. Akola Lewis Cameron, thank you very much. I just want to touch on a few things that you've mentioned before we entertain the questions. And Katik and Camille, if you can send me the questions, I'll appreciate that very much. I think it was very clear that in times of crisis, it creates an opportunity for change and innovation and shows that it is possible and also necessary. That we have to adjust to this changing sector. I think what stood out to me is the fact that innovation is a mindset. We have to be able to think outside of the box, not doing business as usual, because obviously this is a crisis situation. Also, innovation pivots on the people. We have to invest our resources in building and pooling our resources together, building competencies, using our talents. And yesterday we talked a lot about how do we include the creatives in this space. How do we include items and things that are unique to our Vincentian experience. We've talked a lot about this, Rodney Small, about our music and how much of our music is being used as we push the sector forward. Of course, we have to refine what we have and own it and sell it to the people. So thank you very much, Dr. Akola Lewis Cameron, and we are very appreciative of your time and your presentation. Any questions in the hall or anyone at the hub? We are available right now for any questions to Dr. Lewis Cameron. No questions? She was so clear. Okay. Katik, any questions from the hubs? Okay, thank you very much. If not, we move into the next item. We're taking a short break, and this will give us an opportunity to highlight some of the videos and multimedia that we have on our destination. So we'll take a short break and we'll come back. What time do we come back, Geraldine? In 5.
Tourism has many benefits to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It creates growth and a boost in economic activities, infrastructure development, job creation, entrepreneurship, and is a source of foreign exchange earnings. Supermarkets and vendors, bars, restaurants, taxis, tour guides, hotels, service providers, and many more all benefit directly from income gained through the tourism industry. Taxes collected from visitors to our country help St. Vincent's economy and its growth. Tourism is everyone's business. Live it, love it, embrace it.
Tourism is everyone's business. Yeah. Live it, love it, embrace it.
Good customer service is essential to the tourism industry in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Treat your customers with respect and resolve issues amicably.
Hi, good day. This is not the room I reserved. The room I reserved had a view. Okay, I am so sorry to hear that. Can you come to front desk so that we can assist you better? All right, I'll come down. Thank you. I am so sorry for your inconvenience. Can we upgrade you to another room with a view? Yes, I will be fine. Thank you. Could you hold 1 second for me so that I can get that ready for you? Here you go. Thank you. You're welcome.
Good customer service means being polite, attentive, honest, and putting the needs of the customer first.
Tourism is everyone's business. Yeah. Live it, love it, embrace it.
environment is important in so many ways.
We all have a part to play to preserve it, as it's where we live, swim, enjoy, and use for many recreational activities. Moreover, it's a habitat which protects the ecosystem and also acts as a protection to our coastline.
Protect the reefs and beaches as they protect you.
The mangroves, Tobago Keys Marine Park, corals, rivers, and beaches are all of ours to protect. Protecting these sites from pollution can benefit the tourism sector. We need to exercise proper waste management practices via our businesses, hotels and restaurants, tour operators, public transport, and taxi drivers.
Practice recycling.
Use the garbage dump at Diamond for your industrial waste. Enjoy your beach picnics, river limes, but please remember to take away your garbage.
Play a part. Respect your environment. Don't leave it up to someone else.
Tourism is everyone's business. Yeah. Live it, love it, embrace it.
Good customer service is essential to the tourism industry in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Hi. Hello. Excuse me.
Treat your customers with respect and resolve issues amicably. Good customer service means being polite, attentive, honest, and putting the needs of the customer first.
Hi, good afternoon. Can I help you?
Yeah, have a beer, please.
What? But I was here first, and you just went and served him?
Tourism is everyone's business.
Sorry for keeping you waiting. The bar was so busy. However, can I offer you a drink on the house?
Tourism is everyone's business. Yeah. Live it, love it, embrace it.
Beautiful white and black sand beaches, lush mountains and valleys, rivers, hidden waterfalls, and multiple islands and islets. St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We are a friendly people, welcoming tourists from all over the world with exotic boutique and luxury hotels and a hospitable business environment. Let's make all tourists welcome at our international airport, on cruises, on yachts, on sailboats, on land and sea tours, at beach lines, at our restaurants, shops and bars, and at our national festivals. St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Tourism is everyone's business. Live it, love it, embrace it.
Tourism is everyone's business, yeah. Live it, love it, embrace it.
Good customer service is essential to the tourism industry in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Engage your customers politely and with respect. Stay within the guidelines of the Taxi Association and perform best practice when engaging the customer. Await your turn. The dispatcher will beckon you to your next customer. Approach the customer one at a time. Show a positive attitude and do not rush them.
Have your customers' best interests at heart. Let them feel welcomed and satisfied. Be available, reliable, and willing to help at all times.
Tourism is everyone's business, yeah. Live it, love it, embrace it.
Welcome back to the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Virtual Tourism Stakeholders Conference. We thank you for your patience, and I hope that you indulge with those amazing videos of the Vincentian experience. At this point, we move right into the next agenda item, which is our panels, and we're going to have them come to the podium and speak for just 10 minutes. Might I repeat, for 10 minutes? Because after that, we have a question and answer segment where further issues can be elaborated and so on and so forth. And we'd like to, first of all, call to the podium from the Department of Culture, our cultural ambassador, Mr. Rodney Small.
Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism, Civil Aviation, Sustainable Development, and the Department of Culture, Mrs. Dr. Risa Noel Barnett, Dr. Akola Lewis Cameron, chairpersons and president of the various board and statutory bodies, all tourism stakeholders, the media, and our viewers. Good morning. Culture is the living, breathing experience of tourism for any nation and creates those lasting memories that make visitors want to return to a destination. The relationship between tourism and culture has given rise to an entire ecosystem of expression that includes unique Vincentian traditions in dance, theater, art, music, fashion, craft, cuisine, festivals, and more. These cultural components add tremendous value to the visitor experience and must always be refined and continuously enhanced to ensure that all tourists feel embraced in rich culture of the destination upon each visit. The composition of each tourist is different, and therefore we must be prepared to offer a variety of opportunities to connect with our culture, whether it is through observation by attending concerts, visiting a local bar or restaurant which features local artists, or hands-on experiences such as active participation in traditional dances, our local festival, or participating in any other form of cultural expression. The takeaway must be that the visitor experience is richer with the various cultural activities, but poorer without them. There is a natural symbiosis that exists between tourism and culture of a destination that must be nurtured to maximize the quality of guest experiences. The two go hand in hand and are both lesser value without the other. Culture and tourism have a mutually beneficial relationship that can strengthen the attractiveness and competitiveness of a country, offering the opportunity for the creation of a stronger comparative advantage against those who offer similar or the same thing. Culture is a fast becoming an important element of the tourism product as it creates distinctiveness in a crowded global marketplace. At the same time, tourism provides a critical means of enhancing culture and creating income that can support and strengthen cultural heritage, cultural production, and creativity. There is a link between culture and tourism because of their apparent synergies and their growth potential. Cultural tourism is one of the largest and fastest growing global tourism markets, and the creative and cultural industries are more and more being used to promote destinations. A partnership is vital. The complexity of both the tourism and cultural sectors suggests that platforms must be created to support collaboration, and mechanisms must be found to ensure that these two sectors can communicate effectively. Local creative and cultural entities, I urge you to come together to develop cultural products for tourism rather than competing directly with one another. We have to look towards putting new structures and projects involving public-private partnership and bringing together a wider range of stakeholders to use culture to make our destination more attractive for visitors. Cultural tourism is important for many reasons. Perhaps the most prominent reason is social impact. Cultural tourism can help reinforce identities and preserve the heritage and culture of our country. All tourism sites and establishments will benefit from the added value that organized and targeted cultural features and activities bring to the overall experience. Cultural tourism can also have positive economic impacts. Economic activities associated with the cultural arts has been shown to help drive the preservation of certain traditions. Cultural traditions tend to survive longer when they are attached to sustainable and structured economic activities. For example, carnival bands and the mask-making art form. Costumes are sold to revelers who pay handsomely to wear them on Carnival Day, helping to sustain mass bands for decades and preserve the art form through generations. Cultural tourism is a real economic driver. Create new jobs, support small businesses and enable them to expand, spreads economic benefits to businesses and people who are not included in traditional destination marketing, builds vital relationships among and within local communities, helps encourage the development and maintenance of new and existing communities. Standardization. Cultural goods and services should work with stakeholders to initiate the process of standardization in the tourism market space to realize more benefits. Pricing, attire, performance area. Yes, we do not want to be placed in that jammed up corner to perform. Hospitality riders, requirements, training, etc. The introduction of uniform and streamlined protocols and codes for employment at tourism sites, hotels, bars, restaurants, etc. is of mutual benefit to the cultural service providers, employees, and visitors alike. Commercialization. The development of a wider variety of cultural goods and services, brands, that can be packaged and adapt to suit evolving circumstances in the tourism market that utilize the talents of as many practitioners in the cultural arts as is possible. Taking a modern approach to cultural commerce via all available technology. Utilizing wireless debit and credit card machines at these locations and utilizing e-commerce. Everybody wants to go to Broadway or Las Vegas. I urge you to let's come together and utilize all aspects and elements of culture, and let's put together the reenactment of the life of Sheikh Joseph Chatway, or newly the two significant dates of our volcanic eruption, which also signifies the cancellation of Vinci Mass. We at the Department of Culture continue to foster our relationships with the private sector to generate more support for the creative and cultural industries and continue working with our umbrella bodies, the Carnival Development Corporation, National Cultural Foundation, the Nine Mornings Committee, the Gospel Fest Committee, just to name a few. At the department, we will continue to pay very close attention to training and development for all our creative and cultural industries practitioners. We now have a national cultural database that is not only available to government ministries or departments, but also to the public. Work has commenced on our national cultural policy, our national folk festival, dance festival, theatre and drama festival, our evening of excellence, and most importantly, providing consultations and training that is geared towards making our creative and cultural industries practitioners export ready. We have an open door policy at the Department of Culture where our experts are ready to serve you. To my fellow practitioners, the time is now. We had a very long break to put in some serious work. The world is not waiting on us. We must put our house in order and be listed and counted. There have been some setbacks, but I want to encourage you to start looking in the direction of more collaborative efforts and activities, training and certification, registration, innovation, marketing, and product development. The conversation must turn to create the environment and structures and making the investment to help develop the cultural arts and bring them to a state of readiness for partnership with the overall tourism product, facilitating training and development. In the long term, we will have to be innovative in the way in which we develop, manage, and market culture and tourism. This is particularly true if we want to extract the full range of benefits from this relationship for people who visit, live, work, and invest in our country. Some areas that will be necessary to address are the following: challenges of funding for culture, the need to create sustainable relationship, the integration of cultural tourism and national development strategies. As the crisis continues with the destinations reopening across the world, the tourism and cultural sector are required to adapt quickly and respond effectively at short notice. The global pause of travel has created an opportunity to move away from unsustainable practices of the past towards more resilient, inclusive, and resource-efficient models that contribute to sustainability and foster economic growth with our small developing nations. We have two choices: allow the COVID-19 virus to destroy what we have built over the years, or use the vaccine as a weapon to fight the virus. St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the home of Alston Beckett Cyrus, Marlon Rudette, Skinny Fabulous, Bridget Bolcher, Shay Keane, David Darky Williams, Roy Ralph, Dings Johnson, Dr. Edgar Adams, Pirates of the Caribbean, Black and White Sand Beaches, and Active Volcano, steel orchestras with over 16 championships, 32 islands, rich history of who we are. We should not just see the destination as a country, but we must see it as a brand. No man is an island, no man stand alone. Tourism is everyone's business. Reconnect, rethink, and rebuild stronger together. And if I may add, one great songwriter once said, we have a country to build. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rodney Small. You mentioned that there's a symbiosis between culture and tourism. I hope we can distill culture some more to mean a lot more than carnival. At this point, I'd like to welcome to the podium the chairman of the Carnival Development Corporation, Mr. Ricardo Adams.
Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism, Civil Aviation, Sustainable Development and Culture, Dr. Risa Noel McBarnett. Featured speaker, Dr. Akolia Lewis. Mr. Moderator with the new hat today, but still looking spiff as ever. Specially invited guests, stakeholders, members of the media. I'm here today to say a few words on behalf of the CDC. As you are aware, the Carnival Development Corporation has been charged with the development of the carnival culture in SVG. As has been pointed out by several presenters already, the development of our tourism is dependent on our ability to differentiate from the traditional destinations of sea and sand, and festival tourism is one of the areas of that differentiation. I will argue that Vincimas provides one of the strongest opportunities to develop SVG tourism as a differentiated product and to put heads in beds and revenue in pockets across the economy. Festival tourists travel with the intent not only to fill rooms, but to attend events and experience all that the culture has to offer. We are strategically positioned at the start of the summer festival season, so we complement the traditional winter-based tourist season and have the capacity to increase the arrival figures from our non-traditional source markets by targeting our Caribbean people, both regionally and in the huge global diaspora. It also allows us the opportunity to extract more dollars per head per night by coupling the value-added components of Vincimas. There is no doubt that Vincimas in 2019 was a name on the lips of many carnival followers across the globe. We were riding high on the success of our soca artists, a successful Vincimas 2019, which saw increased numbers of visitors and local participation from the component level, and coupled with our targeted marketing and emerging alliances in the region and North America, we were anticipating an exciting Vincimas 2020. On the local front, we launched Vincimas 2020 and launched our new Vincimas logo, and we were working hard at home on supporting our components through training and development programs and strengthening our own internal capacity to grow the festival. Then came COVID. It was as though Vincimas had caught the virus. Our practitioners were deprived of the oxygen of artistic expression, competition, and performance-based revenue. They were hurting. Then it became obvious to everyone the reach of Vincimas. Apart from the obvious effect on the traditional pan, calypso, and mass practitioners, hairdressers didn't get to do the styles for the events, less outfits were made, the distributors of entertainment-dependent product lost their sales, the event promoters, DJs, bartenders, infrastructure providers, security firms, taxis, hotels, clothing vendors, airlines, hardware stores, and the list goes on and on. But our practitioners were hardest hit. Hotels had some revenue from quarantine occupancy, restaurants still sold food, taxis still operated, clothing was still sold, hair and nails were still done, hardware stores still sold hardware. But no entertainment meant not a drip of performance revenue for panists, mass bands, calypsonians, DJs, promoters, etc. We were given a one-off dose of an injection of a stimulus package by the government, and having been able to gasp a breath of air, we began preparing for Vincimas 2021. Then boom, Madame Soufre. Then came the Delta. This time we were a bit better prepared because the world had starting to do what it needs to do to return to normalcy. While on the local level, we remain without Vincimas, we have seen a few of our musicians begin to be employed, a few events happening globally, and we recently had 2 Ministry of Health approved events on the local circuit. So there is hope. Based on what we have learned, we are again looking at the way forward for a sustainable Vincimas. So what are we doing? What are the challenges, and how do we reimagine the solutions? We do not as yet believe that nationally we understand the true value of Vincimas. To that end, we are again appealing to the government for assistance in doing an economic analysis of the contribution of Vincimas to the national economy. Let us look at the scope of who benefits from Vincimas. How many times per year are our hotel rooms at 100% occupancy? How do we define what makes us unique? How do we move beyond a sea and sand destination? We must not become a festival of fits. We must focus on the uniqueness and development of our rural carnivals, our t-shirt bands, the energy of our soca monarch, and the range of options available to masqueraders. We are uniquely energetic and intimate. How do we change the mindset of our practitioners? How do we get them to better understand the business of carnival? Right now, we are not able to use our virtual space for revenue creation. We can have events, but many practitioners are not registered. So music played on the radio and in events does not put revenue in their pockets. We must run an intellectual property awareness campaign and get practitioners to look at their art as a business opportunity. I want to steal a line from St. Vincent yesterday. It's the experience. We have a situation where we are still trying to sell costumes rather than selling the experience to masqueraders. I had the unfortunate experience a couple of years ago of the CDC trying to move in a different direction, and we asked the mass practitioners, what do your masqueraders think of the move? And I was told bluntly, it has nothing to do with the masquerader. It has to do with what I want to portray. So we are asking people to pay to be part of a band, but how they feel about it was not relevant at the time. Low levels of vaccination uptake limit our ability in the recovery of the sector. Perception is very important. We must believe that our product has value and treat it as such. There is no CDC Vinci Mass or private promoter Vinci Mass or Ministry of Tourism and Culture Vinci Mass. There is Vinci Mass. It belongs to all of us. Packaging is important to prevent fly and flop. Remember, we heard that yesterday. So we have begun discussions for attaching carnival packages to accommodation packages, but this must be private sector driven. It is also an opportunity for us to export our tourism related product, which is the music and our practitioners of our art, and use it as a promotional tool to drive our tourism. Some of the actions that we're taking. The CDC began looking at a 5-year strategic plan, and we intend to continue working on that this year. We will relaunch our Vinci Mass logo, and with that, get into the space of merchandising our brand. We will also look at how we can link with the cruise tourism industry to provide out-of-season work for our artisans. To celebrate our independence and the arrival of the October flights to our shores, we are working on a proposal for a cultural event that welcomes our returning nationals and new visitors alike, an event that includes all of the components of Vinci Mass. It will be an event that meets all the Ministry of Health, Wellness, and the Environment protocols. More details will follow. We will begin our preparations, as we have done in the last 2 years, for Vinci Mass 2022, because we know that out of the dark cloud of COVID and the ashes of Lady Soufre, like a phoenix, Vinci Mass will rise and resume our position as the hottest carnival in the Caribbean. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Mr. Ricardo Adams. You have just ascended to the only person who have met the 10 minutes requirement for the panelist. And of course, that is a good show. Yes, and of course, you mentioned something that I think is very critical: believing in our product and selling the experience. And this goes beyond carnival. It goes far-reaching into our tourism product as a whole. All right, thank you. And right now we invite a gentleman who wears several hats like I do. He is an infectious disease specialist and the CEO of the Medical Cannabis Authority in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Please make welcome Dr. Gerald Thompson.
Thank you very much there, Hayden. A very pleasant good morning to everyone. I must apologize in advance. I'm a long talker.
You can use my time. I yield my time.
Okay.
Yeah, no worries.
But first of all, I want to say, thank you, to the minister and the Ministry of Tourism and Culture, not just for having me here today, but for the introduction that I saw on television. And it really warmed my heart to see the Prospect Brighton mangrove being featured. And I don't know if it was a drone or if just a mobile camera moving through that particular mangrove. One should know that this is a site that is dear to my heart, and I'm part of a process that's trying to preserve and conserve that whole site there, the only remaining white mangrove forest on mainland St. Vincent. Prince Charles had visited it 2 years ago, and since I've been keeping in touch with some of the officials there, but I have that spot marked where Prince Charles stood. Some people may not bother about that because they may not be monarchists. I'm not either, but I have seen so many people now coming out there taking pictures and even building rafts and floating in the little lagoon. It's quite wonderful. But I'm reassured by what I see there because of what's happened in our main forest. The hills of La Soufrière, really, whether I really lament with the parks and beaches and with the forestry department, what has happened there in terms of the loss of biodiversity and that central forest. But once again, I know that besides the white mangrove, we've been trying to conserve not just it's the largest land crab habitat right now, and I don't know if you've ever tasted some of those land crabs, a delicacy. Well, I'm sure if any of those hotels, they're probably taking them from the mangrove to sell to you, But it's also the herbs and the other rare plants. You may know of seed on the leaf and body me eye and part of man life and maybe dandelion. But for me, Congo Lala and the Tepehi and the medicinal properties of these, I'm glad that we are conserving these when Soufrière may well have taken a lot of these wild plants out. We still retain them. But I am not really here. I thought I'd give that a little plug. I want to say out at the mangrove, we've not planted any cannabis. Right? I can assure you of that. I say that in front of the camera, But I am the CEO of the Medicinal Cannabis Authority. And we've legalized medicinal cannabis here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And since the launch of one of the company's products about 3-4 weeks ago, 90 patients have been utilizing medicinal cannabis for 20 different conditions. You may have aspirin that may be used for one type of condition and a diabetic tablet used for diabetes, but cannabis can be used for almost 20 different conditions. And the Rasta were right, And are several companies that have been licensed here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, along with a number of traditional cultivators. And the structure of regulations, some people say free it up, really free it up, you know what I mean? But one of the things is that there's this international treaty from 1961 that was put in place, and it's a tight international treaty that we've been trying to see how we can, maneuver around it. But St. Vincent and Grenadines is more of an export-oriented type industry, and I'm really pleased to tell you that we've constructed a state-of-the-art analytical lab that's going to be able to test the product, not just to know the potency and the content of the cannabis, but also if there's any toxic stuff in it, such as any heavy metals or pesticides or anything of that nature. And we've been introducing a lot of standards and so that when persons cultivate, they're not using anything that will in any way affect the quality of what we produce. And we're really happy with what's taking place. The state-of-the-art lab is going to allow us to be a player in this regard. And we're looking to really open up the lab within a short space of time. Everyone here is invited. You know what I mean? I'm joking, really. But one of the things many of us don't really know is that St. Vincent also has some very unique soil. I wonder if you all know that we have a rare soil called Moloch andesol. It's volcanic. Maybe a little bit more of it has been added now. And that soil only occupies 0.74% of the Earth's crust. And the nature of the soil is the reason why our root is as it is. And it's also a great reason why cannabis is able to grow in the way it can here in St. Vincent and Grenadines. And as going back with those 90 patients, when we passed the legislation, we did something very interesting. We also had established a relationship with the largest seed-to-sale company in Canada, and they've built us a software that we can track everything, especially with patient access. And we also, in the law, allowed for visitors, patients who come in, whether it's for half a day, that there's some special means, even online registration and so forth, so that they could actually go to a pharmacy, a dispensary, and utilize them. Some of the dispensaries could also establish a room by which persons could utilize those particular products and so forth. In other countries, the hotels have found some way of engaging in such things. Dispensaries be set up in a hotel, but I'm pretty sure that there are going to be visitors who come to St. Vincent, and already in our profile we are seeing that a number of visitors who came qualified and have been able to utilize the service quite legally, and I suspect that some of your visitors would love to have this uplifting experience,
2 minutes.
Yeah. Now, what I'm also here for is, you had a presentation on COVID yesterday, and I'm also here mainly to answer questions relating to COVID-19. As a medical doctor, infectious disease, I firmly believe that even though it has been slow, I really have that faith that our hesitant side of the population are going to come forward. They may need some nudges, like what is going to take place in Parliament today. Some persons may want something a lot more mandatory. What is in Parliament is not considered to be mandatory. But I believe that everybody has to double their effort. And each individual, if one individual could talk to 2, and some persons talk to 9, maybe we could have a special thing for people who get 9 people to vaccinate. This is the way in which we're going to get over this pandemic. And so I am really proud of the Ministry of Health, the work they're doing at the borders, at the airport, in keeping St. Vincent and the Grenadines safe. Because without that, we might be overwhelmed like the BVI in Trinidad and so forth. And the dangers there. But I believe in terms of the protocols that have been established that we can get this through as we try to convince people to vaccinate. Some people may have given up on that. But I believe that we all have to double down, redouble the efforts, and get that particular job done. Thank you very much.
What? Thank you very much, Dr. Gerald Thompson. That has to go down as the shortest speech he has ever made in his lifetime. Woo! Wow. I wasn't prepared for that. All right, so moving along. Thank you very much. And indeed, just want to endorse what he said concerning the medicinal marijuana. I am a forest engineer who have studied medicinal plants quite extensively. And I am happy that we can be able to extract necessary properties from the marijuana in order to help with our alien population. Thank you so much. At this time, we make welcome to the podium the president of the SPG Hotel and Tourism Association, Miss Kim Halbish.
I'm planning to be the shortest one. Protocol having been established. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity through the ministry for me to present today on behalf of the Hotel and Tourism Association. Yesterday, Mrs. Bianca Porter would have presented on the accommodation side of the association, and I am tasked with the other side of the association. Just to give you a little history, St. Vincent and the Hotel Association was founded over 52 years ago, and it was the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Hotel Association. It was founded to support, train, advocate, and market the accommodation sector. The association has grown by leaps and bounds, and it now encompasses many supporting sectors of the industry. As was pointed out yesterday many times and today, tourism is everybody's business, and we at the Hotel Association knew that a long time ago, and we were working to build as many players to have them in our industry, in our association as possible. So now we have, our association is managed by our hard-working secretariat and a board of directors. We have a director for hotels, we have a director for apartments and guest houses, we have a director for resorts, we have a director for villas, and those are the persons Bianca spoke about yesterday. We also have a director for restaurants, so if you have a restaurant without a hotel, you can be a member. We also have a director for yachting, we also have a director for diving, we also have a director for land and sea tours, and we have an allied member director. Because encompassed in the Hotel Association now is security services, spas, event planners, supermarkets, airlines. So our association is far-reaching and it's growing. It is really growing. This conference mission is to reconnect, rethink, and rebuild stronger. We have been connected. We have been talking to our members. Sometimes members, it's been a real hard year and a half, and sometimes members would just call to find out if you're making it. It's been really rough. And so we have been working with the COVID task force, and they are hard workers. They are so accommodating of the hotel sector and work really well with us. And many of the properties have been forced to think, as I say, outside of the box and come up with areas. So staycations were developed, and I did a farmer's market. Persons have teas, and just to encourage the local market, and that has worked for some. But obviously it would not be everything. While the accommodation and taxi drivers had benefited from the required transitioning the other side of the industry was really suffering. The other side being the yachting, the diving, the tour buses, the boat tours, the gift shop and souvenir shops, the entertainers. They had little to no business at all for a year and a half. And we see a small uptake. We see it moving forward. And we're hoping to ride this wave, but we have to do it safely. As I mentioned earlier, the COVID task force was working with the association, and what we did, we created an area called SVG Arrivals, where we worked with the task force to bring in yacht visitors, yacht and boat arrivals safely. I'd just like to read a couple of the comments we've had from them. Thank you very much for assisting during our arrival procedure in St. Vincent aboard our sailing yacht Bucama. Your team is extremely well prepared and very efficient. Everything flowed smoothly and communication with you was absolutely first class. Congratulations on a job well done. Next one. Are you headed for SVG? We just sent our initial forms and received a fairly quickly reply. We are headed there at the end of this week. The above link is one of the most boating comprehensive ones I've seen within the whole Caribbean region. So this is to show that the private sector and the public sector can work together. So SVG Arrivals is made up of some of the yachting partners that was necessary to create a safe arrival for yachts. And it is working tremendously. Now we have a couple ports opening up, and we have to try and keep our hands on it moving forward. The dive and tour companies anxiously await some small business return. They're looking forward to getting the cruise ship protocols, and hopefully I know it's a bubble thing, but one by one, we hope some will get some feedback and some information, and then some work. The yacht and charter companies, those who are lucky enough to have boats on hand, are seeing some new bookings. So things are picking up a little bit now. But others who have yachts that are based in Europe that come down, the yacht owners in the leery about sending their yachts now because the industry is so fragile, and with the new variant and the uptake in the COVID in areas of the world, they're second guessing. So some yacht companies are still suffering because they don't have yachts to rent, even if they get the people. So that's an issue for the yachting section. What we're seeing is yachts coming out of Martinique to do charter work in the islands. And in saying that, we are hoping this partnership moves further to deal with maritime, the ministry, the authority, to make sure that these yachts that are chartering in the islands are registered and follow all protocols moving forward, because we don't want to end up with another confusion if you have too many and they're not following protocols. We look forward to possible partnerships with the Hospitality Institute as we build a skilled and certified workforce. As plans are in place to double our room stock, our institute must produce qualified personnel, qualified bartenders, chefs, pastry chefs, and importantly, it must have put in a plan for those who are already in the industry and would like to better themselves, who would like to receive certification, who would like to move from a waiter to a bartender, or a waiter to a manager or restaurant manager. So we need to think of those who are already in the industry, who cannot leave because of family commitments or money constraints, that our institute supports them. So that is something we're also looking at working, hopefully with the institute, with the Hotel and Tourism Association. I know the industry is tired and they feel really stressed, and I know they feel picked upon at this time because they're saying they've been treading water for a long time. But I'd like to, and then they feel like they're putting the emphasis on the vaccination must be the hotel workers, the hospitality workers. But I would like to appeal to those who haven't taken it to rethink, get the facts, talk to your doctor. The Hotel Association has organized doctors to come to speak with any hotelier who needs a doctor to speak to their staff in order to encourage persons to take the vaccine. It has been a hard climb, but there's some light at the tunnel, hopefully. I see the arrivals picking up. I see an improved November. I see an amazing December, but I also saw an amazing December last year. And I saw tragedy in January. So, 1 minute left. Father. I see arrivals picking up. We can become overwhelmed when the visitor arrivals come up. Protocols will slip. Persons will get in. And I'm appealing to you now. The only way we could get through this is if we're vaccinated, if we follow protocols. And if we don't, we'll have a very unhappy 2022. Once again, I look forward to continued partnerships within the various ministries and the authorities as we rebuild, as it could only happen if we work together. I would like to thank Flo. We have big plans for the new season. We're doing our visitor channel. Flo has kindly sponsored us. And as we work to clean up and move on and have a bright tourism relaunch, I'm asking everyone to do their part, because tourism is not just the hotels, the taxi drivers, it's everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim Halbich, for that presentation on time. We will take questions at this moment. Anyone in the hall would like to ask the panelists any questions? If not, we have a few questions from the virtual participants. This one comes from the Flow Hub, and this is for Dr. Gerald Thompson. The question goes, for taxi drivers who have serious illnesses, can they be exempted from taking the vaccine?
That is a very good question, one we've answered many times, and depends on what does it mean by a serious illness. Many serious illness, somebody has severe diabetes, severe high blood pressure, a number of other conditions, they've had cancer in the past, we consider those all serious illnesses. And they are at the highest risk of not only contracting COVID-19, but being one of the 2% of individuals who could succumb and die from it, or the 10 to 15% where the severity of the infection could be severe. So I want to say, if it is that kind of severity, then yes, they should get. Now, on the other hand, if they have a condition that could exempt them, and there'll be somebody who has a severe allergy, certain types of asthma and so forth and that, then what they would do is to have their doctor write a particular letter. In Parliament today, I am pretty sure there will be some amendments that even when the doctor writes a letter, and most of them will, I know there were many patients who've come to me in the past in the United States, say, boy, can you write me a letter to say I am sick for 7 weeks? I won't go into Young Island today. Oh, sorry, not Young Island. You know, and they basically, some doctors unfortunately could be a mill, and I don't want to put them down, to produce a lot of these patients. Go by him, he go write one for you. Go by her, he write one for you. And so some doctors, the approval of an exemption will have to go to a panel in which it will be finally approved. So I want to encourage a simple process. Doesn't mean that they're taking away your rights and so forth in this regard. It just means that it's not going to be abused, and that there are conditions in which somebody can be exempted. That's always going to be the case. However, if you have a severe illness, please go and get vaccinated. It could save your life.
Thank you very much. We have another question, and this is directed to the SVG TA. Is anybody in the room to take a question on behalf of the SVG Tourism Authority? Okay. Okay. Do you think hosting various peculiar workshops on educating self-employed persons on how to structure their finances, packaging, business etiquette would help, and what other elements can you suggest to inspire improvement towards this journey? Wish me to repeat the question? Yeah, repeat it. So, Ms. World. Do you think hosting various peculiar workshops in educating self-employed persons on how to structure their finances, packaging, business etiquette would help, and what other elements can you suggest to inspire improvements towards this journey?
I think if the packages are structured to tie in with the hospitality industry, then I can understand the need to for the Tourism Authority to host a workshop to assist in this regard. And that type of thing has been done before, but it has done specifically to our direct sector. When we've had annual planning meetings in the past, that has been done. In fact, it was done on 2 different occasions. So if the person is self-employed in an industry that complements the hospitality industry, then yes, in terms of managing their finances, that definitely would not be the Tourism Authority. That would be another ministry. Perhaps they could contact maybe the Center for Enterprise Development, I would think, would be a good avenue for a small business owner. But if it's packages related to the industry, certainly contact the Tourism Authority and they would be happy to reach out to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bianca Porter. I was just told that the CEO of the SVG Tourism Authority has some personal matters and couldn't be here, so thank you for taking that question. More questions coming. Just be patient. Are there going to be any guests or tourists walking through Kingstown, given the circumstances of the bubble? And a follow-up question, are there going to be organized stores only? And how would the smaller vendors get part of the tourism dollar?
I don't think there's anyone here right now who can answer that question. I know that the cruise protocols were recently... Oh, do you want me to? There isn't anyone in the room right now who can adequately answer that question. I know cruise protocols were developed recently, but there's no one here who can answer that question now. But we have the contact details there, and we can certainly reach out to that person to provide an answer in no less than a week's time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And this one is for the Ministry of, the Department of Culture. Maxine, it says, what structure has been put in place to start reaching out to the public, private businesses and entrepreneurs to help capitalize on our culture on a higher scale?
The question again?
Sure. What structure has been put in place to start reaching out to the public, private businesses and entrepreneurs to help capitalize on our culture on a higher scale?
Well, the Department of Culture, and by extension the Ministry of Tourism, Civil Aviation, Sustainable Development and Culture, has always sought to reach out to our people in whatever we can. And so we continue to provide training for our people. We continue to encourage them to come to the department and express their ideas with us. And having said that, having met with our people and talk and molded them into the right path, we basically reach out by investing our dollars, our money, our capital in developing whatever ideas they would have brought to us or whatever projects we have. And so let's say the CDC brings an idea to us and wants to upgrade whatever development they have in CDC. We'll say, well, Mr. Chairman, we have this funding. We can meet with our people. We can provide suggestions. So basically, to help enhance the whole situation, we meet and we talk and we see where we can go from there. And I think that's how we basically try to lift the standards. We meet, we discuss, and we see where do we go from here so we can all enhance culture together.
Thank you very much, Ms. Maxine Brown. Question from Kingsley Roberts. What are the plans in place for the development of Kingstown, including the fixing of the open drains and sidewalk? Somebody said Braxa. Okay, fair enough. And of course, a question for National Parks or the SPGTA. Is there a video documentation about the tourism scenes in St. Vincent and the Grenadines? Are there any documented videos? Mr. Wilson?
Okay, thanks, moderator. When we initially developed our tourism sites through the EU Tourism Development Project in 2007, 2010, that period, part of the work would have also involved developing, well, there was a marketing component where we had some initial videos and shoots. This, more or less over time, has been posted on our website and our Facebook pages. Over time, we internally have actually gone out, done some recording, some video clippings and some shots of our sites. So I encourage persons to visit our Facebook pages and also our websites. We have a website dedicated for the Botanical Gardens and one for National Parks Authority. And if you go to those websites, you will see site-specific information where we tend to provide some background information, photos and information with respect to the sites. But this is an ongoing initiative, and we recognize as well internally a need for us over time to renew and to provide some additional information. So there's also some internal discussions and work that we intend to pursue to refresh and provide some more footages, and information that we think will be, important to do and will be appealing to various stakeholders so that they could have, an updated, informed view of our sites, our attractions, South St. Vincent, and particularly as we develop new areas and we expand and as we grow, and there are other thoughts, other ideas come to the fore as to how we should best, package and present stuff to a wide array of stakeholders, both locally and externally. It's a means of marketing, building interest, and also one of the things I want to actually point out to is that our work goes as well towards creating awareness, value, and appreciation for our resources. And again, I encourage persons to go to our Facebook and website pages, and you will see a very active, promotion of our species, our ecosystems that are important because they play a very important role to the tourism industry. So again, I encourage persons to have a look at our Facebook and website, platforms.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Mr. Thompson?
I just wanted to follow up. I wonder if the Ministry of Tourism...
Can you wait for the mic, please, sir?
The Ministry of Tourism, along with, of course, the seismic units and so, will be able to explore that whole thing about using lasso-free and the lasso-free experience as a means of attracting persons. Clearly, if it's not done in the right way, you could scare people off, but at the same time, is it too early and so forth? But the planning of this, as regards when and how and the best methods and who might be attracted to that, I think is something, Wilson, that really has to be
explode, because I think it's an option that should be taken on. I don't know if there's some feedback on that.
Oh, no, nothing on that. Sure. If I may, Mr. Moderator, someone asked a question about Kingstown, and while I'm not the authority on it, it's a very valid concern, and certainly one that we in the tourism industry will not be sweeping under the rug. It is a valid concern to the extent that we have cruise ship passengers who come to our shores and they walk from the cruise ship berth right down into different parts of Kingstown. And there are many areas that there are issues. There are a variety of issues. I will not get into them here. I think most of us know what the issues are. Now, the Ministry of Transport and Works is responsible for the matter of the cleanup of Kingstown. Now, they are not responsible in isolation. Vincent Vanderpool Wallace spoke yesterday, and we are all in this together. So we've had dialogue about it, extensive dialogue about it in the past, but we need to bring this issue back on the table once more. We need to speak about it because it affects locals, it affects persons in the hospitality industry, it affects the overall look of our Kingstown, capital Kingstown, and so it is definitely something that we're going to have to meet as practitioners and discuss. Of course, funds are always an issue, but we have to sit down and look at it and see what can be done so that Kingstown can be more aesthetically pleasing to those who visit our capital. So thanks to the person for bringing that issue up. It's a very relevant issue, very topical, and it is something that we won't be putting on the back burner. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Bianca Porter.
Mr. Hayden, before you move on.
After Medicinal, let you speak, sir.
I just want to say, you heard me that I've endorsed everything that Mrs. Porter has said, and because we all have our country, and she didn't highlight any area. But I'd like to highlight one area, and that's the area down at Heritage Square by the bridge. We need to work on that. But I took the microphone because Ms. Porter raised a question that she saw yesterday or heard of. But on my way home, I saw a question, because yesterday I spoke to culture, and today Randy also spoke to culture. And we spoke about the CDC, we addressed the hoteliers, and a lady asked, what happened to craft? Now, I'm glad that the microscope, so I remember that question to provide some answers. We just recently invested $151,000 Eastern Caribbean dollars to help develop and enhance the craft industry. And so that's a step forward. And those monies were provided through the Canadian Funds for Local Initiative, through a project and a grant we saw through Culture and the National Cultural Foundation. And so having invested so much, my challenge to the craft industry now is it's your turn now to step out and enhance your products so you can become more visible. We also had a workshop on technology, and that's how you can get your product online. The lady said all this morning, if you're not online, you don't exist. So we want to encourage you to enhance and promote and just lift the standards generally of our craft, local craft. And having said that, then we can encourage people like Bianca and Kim to display your products and have you bring them there and get some sales on them. So I think that's how I'll answer the question. Thank you
very much, Maxine Brown. And a gentleman, yes, sir. Could you state your name? And yes, please.
Okay, thank you. My name is Marlon Nanton. I represent Kingston Board. Now, I welcome the conversation with Ms. Porter. Now, cruise ship passengers coming into Kingston, a lot of them engage in walking the streets of the town. A lot of, they also look for the experience of being able to go at a shop, have a high room beer at a shop, experience the local food, the local cuisine. You find a lot of them, as Maxine said, engage in Heritage Square. Presently, we have begun a process of rethinking how to clean up Kingston. Clean up Kingston in terms of the vending situation, in terms of the sanitary streets, keeping the streets clean, you know, the presentation. Over the years, we have had some challenges with the vendors. Mainly, I believe the culture. A lot of vendors, they come, they sell, basically, their interest is to make money, not necessarily interested in keeping the town clean. So it's a partnership that we have to engage now with the vendors and with other authorities, health, tourism, and so forth. In 2018, 2019, we would have had a collaboration with Invest SVG, where just before the night markets would have started, where we would have begun engage in different sectors, the craft, the local craft, local shoe persons, you know, those persons where we were trying to step up their level, their standard of presenting their produce. That fell aside after the COVID hit in, and it's something on the front burner for us that we're going to re-engage. In terms of the vendors, in terms of the way the vendors present themselves, in terms of their standard, it's something that we are happy to engage with. Happy to engage with the Ministry of Tourism, happy to engage with other key stakeholders, so that at the end of the day, as we say, an experience is an experience, and a bad experience may trigger off other ripple effects. And if we can work together to basically come, and because the vendors are actually, some of them are actually intrigued in once you get them on board, they're very interested. I don't want to say they don't know, but you know, sometimes you just need a little coaching in the way you do things. So once we can engage persons in that way, I think we can be able to create a culture. We can be able to create a culture whereby, you know, persons begin thinking of the way they do things and the way they present things, and I believe it can improve the standards on a whole. So I believe with good collaboration with different stakeholders, with the public at large also, I think that we can reach places in reopening and restarting.
Thank you very much, Mr. Marlon Nanton, for that. And I think this is very important as we look towards gentrifying Kingstown and making it more visually appealing for visitors. I have a question for the Ministry of Tourism. Concessions, and this is from the Peacemore Hall. Concessions are given to many tourism stakeholders. When will consideration be made for the taxi drivers who are a vital part of the tourism sector?
All right, thank you. With regards to the question, that would have to be a policy decision, the decision of the cabinet. So a proposal can be made to the ministry, and then we can review, give feedback and comments, and then something can be sent for the consideration of the cabinet. So not at this present time, but I won't rule it out completely. I would also say that there are two taxi associations here, and it would be best practice if the proposals come from the association, so that you would show a unified front before making the submission to the ministry, and we'll try our best to facilitate. Thanks.
Thank you very much, PS. This question is for Rodney Small, and it's from the AIA Hub. The entertainment sector is vital to our tourism product, but currently underdeveloped. There needs to be greater understanding of this sector's importance among locals. Are there any plans to do this?
Yes, good afternoon. It's 12 o'clock. Yes, we have been hosting a series of consultations in the Department of Culture, really to just get a better idea of where we're at in terms of the entertainment industry. And of course, continue to work closely with our umbrella bodies in terms of the CDC, the Gospel Fest Committee, the Nine Wonders Committee. And we have done a series of different consultations with different practitioners in the various fields. And after these consultations, we're now going to take them back to, of course, the staff at the department with the cultural officer and see how we can meet some of these challenges that have come forward from these consultations. So there are a lot of different programs that are streamlined to unfold very soon, which is dealing with, again, as I mentioned, standardization, commercialization, branding, marketing, packaging. You know what I mean? So there are different things that we want to pull away from, not just the ability to perform, but also seeing your hobby as a career.
Thank you very much, Mr. Small. This question goes to the SVG HTA. What incentives are there in place for domestic tourists to encourage them to stay at your properties?
Well, right now, a lot of the properties, most of the properties would have a local rate or a local package that is presented to locals, and it includes day passes, it includes overnight packages. We've seen an uptake in honeymoons and anniversary and birthdays. In fact, yesterday I had a young lady who said she's just tired, she needs to get away from her kids, she wants a hotel room for the night. So, so yeah, definitely. There's a lot of day passes happening. Spa. They're actually working very hard. And I know of Grenadine hotels, and I know Beckway, for example. Last weekend, the holiday weekend was pretty full. So, you just have to call the various establishments to get information.
Thank you, Kim. Another question to the SPG HTA. To encourage locals to patronize the hotels, guest houses, etc., they want to be treated the same as our visitors. What plans are there in place to train hotel employees and encourage them to adopt this practice? This is from Kwesi Lockhart.
Great question. I think most establishments would tell or train their employees that all visitors are equal. I know for one, I said to my staff, if it's your best friend who walks into the establishment, treat him like a guest. So I think with retraining, and because we're having so much more local visitors, I think it's happening naturally, and it's just going to grow from there, I think, moving forward. But definitely we all in the industry let our service providers know that every customer counts.
Thank you, Kim. And this question is directed to the national parks. Sargassum is a plague to tourism. Will there be a national policy on dealing with sargassum?
Thanks, moderator. And I think throughout St. Vincent and Grenadines, and particularly around this period, we have all seen ongoing influx of the sargassum weed that has actually affected our country. We actually traveled up the coast within the last 2 weeks, and it's something that we recognize, has continued to actually, flow in to our shores, and actually affects both beaches in St. Vincent and also in the Grenadines. We have had established a National Sargassum Task Force and Committee. They have actually developed some plans and proposals that are in place to really guide how we respond to the sargassum. So there's actually a structure and a committee that has been set up, approved by Cabinet, that actually is in place to really respond to and address the sargassum. We have had also some inputs and some guidance provided through regional institutions that have actually been working on recommendation and guidance with respect to the sargassum and how do we effectively, respond, control, and manage the influx. So there have been some work that has been done. There's a structure in place. There's an entity that's actually been set up, but it requires ongoing work. The challenge with sargassum too is that it's actually seasonal, and the volumes vary, and the response would have to be specific to the extent, the area, and the nature of the impacts. So there's not really one solution that will fit all, but there's a range of options that has been recommended that could be applied to a given situation.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. I'd also like to say that the SERMIS department in the University of the West Indies in Barbados have developed a draft sargassum adaptive management plan for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and it is currently being debated, and recommendation from that would inform how to deal with sargassum going forward. We have a question from Mr. Rodney Small.
Yeah, good afternoon again. I just realized that there wasn't a member from the Tourism Authority, but I still want to put it out there, right? If you think that Ms. Uta can answer. Sorry, yes, I am aware that there's certain requirements that the taxi drivers and the bus operators and some bars and restaurants, there's certain things that, certain requirements that they have to meet before they can be approved. Is that correct? We are talking standardization from the Department of Culture and moving forward as an industry. Is there anything in place where an entertainer who wants to be a part of the hotel circuit, perform in the hotel circuit, is there anything in place where he can come and obtain some approval to be an entertainer in the hotel circuit? One of the reasons is that over the years we have heard hotel owners and restaurant managers saying that entertainers, they're not professional, they don't dress properly, they're not on time. So my question is that, is there any sort of training or any sort of requirement that an entertainer can go through to say that I am a certified hotel circuit performer? So we know when Young Island or when Paradise Inn booked Rodney Small, he is a certified and approved hotel circuit entertainer, so we would not meet these deficiencies or challenges.
Good question.
Yeah, thanks, Rodney. Yes, excellent question. Right now, no. We can, and I really shouldn't be the person answering that. It should be the CEO of the Tourism Authority, or Avenel De Silva, who is the Quality Development Manager. However, the Tourism Authority currently licenses the accommodation sector, taxi drivers, tour guides, and tour operators. They're working on standards for 2 different areas right now. Restaurants, I believe, and they had started with the spa sector as well. So they haven't, let me rephrase that, we haven't progressed to the creative sector yet, entertainers, but I'm glad that you brought that up. I really can't say yes because we don't have anything developed for that sector. I'm trying to think. I don't have the act in front of me. I don't believe it's in the act. That isn't to say that perhaps it may not be considered, again, not through the Tourism Authority, because of course these things go through cabinet, but it's a valid point and something that perhaps can be discussed further. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Question to Dr. Gerald Thompson. If a shop owner at the cruise ship terminal is not vaccinated and there is a cruise call to Port Kingstown, are there any provisions for that shop owner to be able to provide their service or sell their products to those visitors?
Is there any member of the cruise task force here? I would get it. You know, I think that I think cruise ships are coming in on the weekend. Is that right? Is the first ship coming in? Yeah. And an ongoing effort would have to be made to encourage persons to do so. Now, the whole idea is that they're going to be trying to create these bubbles. That's the whole concept. And in terms of the way in which an unvaccinated person is going to interact with persons in the bubble, is a complex issue. And it comes down to rights, because somebody could say, it is my right not to be vaccinated. And we understand that. That's not being challenged. But someone else who is vaccinated, I want everybody to understand, still has a small chance, because it's 90-something% effective, 94% depending on the vaccine, that you could still pick up the virus. We've got to admit that. But those persons would typically get it in a mild way. Should they be exposed? What is their right not to be in contact with persons? So this is going to come that people on the cruise ships are asking, if they come to a hotel, and it's broader question, if they come to a hotel, they would like the staff to be vaccinated. If they go on a tour, they like the staff there. If they go to the botanical gardens, they would like those persons to be there. So that it is going to be a challenge, and I'm not really sure how the task force is going to have people as they traverse through the cruise ship, and there is somebody there who has a vendor. There's been no effort to close them down. But I think the ongoing effort to try and encourage them to continue vaccinate. And in other locations, that earlier question in terms of seeing how you as a vendor who may be vaccinated could be part of a bubble at the botanical gardens or elsewhere, or at a tour site. I think that over the next couple of days, and certainly beyond this cruise visit, there's going to be a lot more education as regards how this is done. And maybe there hasn't been enough done on it, but you're going to hear massive amount of publicity and information on this particular subject. I may seem to have been able to skip the real subject, but the individuals, we are asking you, if you know that person, talk to them. I know who's asked the question is vaccinated, so talk to the other person. Each person talk to two persons. So talk to that person and try and get them vaccinated so that they can be part of the bubble too.
Thank you very much, Dr. Thompson. And I have a follow-up question to that. Because the vaccine does not prevent the spread or contraction of COVID-19, in particularly the new variant, would tourists be tested when they disembark the ships, yes, to ensure that they do not spread that variant to our vaccinated?
Yes. One of the great differences between an airplane and a cruise ship. To get on an airplane, an American airline flight, you have to have your vaccinated test done 3 days before, 72 hours before. I traveled a couple of months ago, and I had to get...
PCR test.
PCR. And I had to go to a CVS, and they made me take my own swab. And I took my own swab and so forth. And they observed me doing that. But I could see how a few people could cheat, you know, truthfully. But as a result of those 3 days, going through the airport, touching this, touching that, interacting with people, we found that persons have become actually positive on the plane. They're positive on the plane. People come in here, and when they land, we test them. One of the great things about the cruise ship is that you ain't talking about a 250-seat plane. You're talking about a 2,000, 3,000 room or bed passenger ship. They have a mini hospital on that ship. 2, 3 doctors, 5, 6 nurses, with a whole set of other staff and tests and so forth. And remember our cruise sailors came through. They were able to do testing on the ship. They're rigorously tested. So getting onto the ship, they have to present with their cruises. I know that's on the challenge from Governor DeSantis. But at the same time, on the ship, they're tested. And we're satisfied that as a business, they are not going to take any chances. So the testing is done fairly well. So that test on the ship could suffice for almost like the test done at Argyle International Airport. And because they are then sailing, whether they're sailing from Miami or the home port is Barbados, that's sufficient time they're able to get back a negative test. And so we are happy that the cruise passenger is relatively safe and that we can now create that bubble. So I want everybody to be reassured that a cruise ship is different from a plane travel, and they are able to do much more extensive surveillance. It's true that a cruise ship has its own challenges, but I think that they're very stringent because one outbreak can affect that whole outfit. So they're very, very, very diligent about that whole process.
Thank you for the reassurance, Dr. Thompson. And this question is for the Ministry, the Department of Culture. And there are two parts question from different persons. One comes from the Union Island Hub. It says, what are the plans for the development of culture on Union Island? And the second question that's very similar to that one comes from the Tobago Keys Marine Park. What plans are there to enhance culture in the Grenadines?
I answer that question with a smile in my heart and a little bit of fear in my heart also. Now, we have always tried our best to include the Grenadines, but we have had challenges, you know, especially during this time of COVID. So let's deal with the COVID situation. Before COVID, officers used to travel to the Grenadines and try to develop the art in the schools and the community. And I can go way back because I used to go there myself when Miss Blanco was around. God bless her soul, she was quite a cultural enthusiast, very involved. So we have made attempts to go to the Grenadines. Over the years, it has trickled down where the Grenadines has been left out a bit, I'm being honest. But we have always tried to include them. So if you can go to them, the principal at the primary school always called on me. Max, come and do a walk with the children, want to do on the cultural dance. So officers will have gone then. During the COVID period, we haven't gone. So now the question is posed. And I know we're a bit guilty of sometimes naming up the Grenadines. We have always thought to include them, I must admit. When we were going to Cry Fest the last time, we included the Grenadines. They were big on board, and that organization could attest that we have included them. So we are trying to include the Grenadines, but it's sometimes very challenging, I must admit. But going forward, Grenadines, I look at the camera straight, we will include you. What's the question with the Tobago Keys? And the same answer could apply. Yes. So we are trying and we'll work on it. I'm Maxine Mavin Brown, together with I'm looking straight at the camera, with my team on the small and on board. We'll do our best to include the Grenadines. We love you too. I thank you.
Wow. What an endorsement, public endorsement. So will you take her word seriously, right? Because she said it publicly. Thank you, Maxine Brown. And I am looking to see if there are other questions, and there seem to be no more questions, which makes us very happy, but sad at the same time. Pardon me? Oh, sure.
Thank you. Although there are no more questions at this time, we are open to receiving questions at the Ministry of Tourism. So we can, via email, mintourismsvg@gmail.com. You can call our ministry, 457-1502, so that we can continue our dialogue. The point of the conference, of course, is a dialogue with and amongst our stakeholders, and the conversation doesn't have to stop here. Going back to that question about the shop owners at the cruise ship terminal and operating within the bubble and the protocols surrounding that, the Port Authority is working very closely as a member of the Cruise Tourism Task Force in terms of the security measures operating within the bubble and other elements. So answers to those specific questions around the protocols and so on will be communicated to our stakeholders in, of course, very soon. All right, so thank you.
Thank you very much, Permanent Secretary Dr. Risa Noel McBarnett, for those comments. And at this time, I'd like to welcome to the podium to bring vote of thanks please make welcome Mrs. Jolene Charles Scott, Communication Manager in the Ministry of Tourism, Civil Aviation, Sustainable Development and Culture.
Good afternoon, everyone. Protocol already been established. Certainly it has been a great 2 days for our stakeholders and for us here at the ministry. We've been planning this conference for several months now. We had to postpone several times due to circumstances beyond our control, but nevertheless, we are here. It's done. By the time I'm finished speaking, it will be completed. But nevertheless, we are grateful. On behalf of the Minister, Permanent Secretary, and staff of the Ministry of Tourism, Civil Aviation, Sustainable Development and Culture, and all statutory bodies within the Ministry of Tourism, a heartfelt thank you to all our stakeholders who we believe and we know are our most valuable asset. Deepest gratitude to our panelists who profoundly highlighted some of the destination's major plans in our quest to strategically and collaboratively rejuvenate this industry. Our keynote speakers, we can all say that they did a phenomenal job. Dr. Akola Cameron reminded us that as industry leaders, we are enablers of innovation. Mr. Vincent Vanderpool Wallace, he provided a fount of knowledge, and he shared his many experiences. We are truly grateful to our keynote speakers. We appreciate the economic outlook that the Honorable Camilla Gonsalves provided to us, in the sense that there is still hope for industry. Your involvement, our media team and IT, your involvement was tremendous, especially our VC3 team. They ensured that we were able to stream this conference live. We were able to stream on radio, on Facebook, on Zoom, and of course, YouTube. Thank you. To our planning committee, as I said, we've been planning for some months now, but your input and your effort, it cannot go unnoticed. We appreciate you and we say thank you. To our sponsors, we are forever indebted to you. Flow, Coats, Finishing and Furnishing, Singer, Corrèze Distribution, we are grateful. We all know that we have been limited in terms of the number of persons indoor, but because of Flow, Coats, Singer, Finishing and Furnishing, and Corrèze Distribution came on board, we were able to have hubs, at least 16 hubs, who were joining us for the 2 days to participate, and our stakeholders were able to share their concerns, their questions, and we are grateful. To our panelists, we are certainly grateful for those persons, especially from Customs, Immigration, Legal Department, Town Board, Ministry of Health. We are grateful that you are here to answer questions related to your portfolio. Ladies and gentlemen, I will hope that I did not forget anyone, and I'm seeing somebody right in front of me, our moderator. He did a phenomenal job, and we just want to say thank you, Hayden Billingy, for carrying this program. These 2 days, we appreciate you. Thank you. So again, thank you for all of the support that you have offered to the ministry. We are certainly grateful that we can work together to advance the growth and development of this industry. Together, we will be stronger. Together, we will continue to reconnect. We'll definitely rebuild this industry stronger than ever. Again, thank you. And remember, tourism is everyone's business. We have to live it, we have to love it, and embrace it. Thank you. Have yourself a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you, Joeline, Charles, Scott, for the vote of thanks. And as we bring the curtains down on this two-day event that we dub St. Vincent and the Grenadines Virtual Tourism Stakeholders Conference, I hope that we have reconnected, rethought, and open to rebuild stronger together. I'm Hayden Bilinji. Thank you so much. Have a great day. God bless you.
We had a lovely visit today with the team from Sandals, led by Adam Stewart, the chairman of the Sandals Corporation.
I just wanted to welcome each and every one of you. You guys ready to join the world's best hospitality company?
Yes! I am Kim Halvish, President of the Medicinal Grenadine Hotel and Tourism Association. Just happy to welcome the Sandals group to St. Vincent again today.
We just are so excited about being in your beautiful country. Your Minister of Finance, my good buddy now, invited me and my family down here some years ago.
That's right.
And it was like love at first sight. The natural beauty of the place, the vibe of the people, and people keep asking me, why St. Vincent? And it's kind of one of these things when you know, you know. It just feels right. And we're going to do something here for tourism that is going to be truly, truly incredible. And each and every one of you are going to be a part of writing that history and that stories.
Beaches St. Vincent is going to be the first beaches facility built out in the Eastern Caribbean. We're hoping that we can see a significant amount of Vincentians being hired. There are 500 persons who will leave St. Vincent and the Grenadines to go off to sites in Turks and Caicos, in Jamaica, in Barbados, St. Lucia. And when they're trained, they will be returning to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, where they will be hired at the Beaches St. Vincent facility.
The training you get now is going to prepare you for either. It'll be your choice, whether you come home or whether you stay with us in other islands in the Caribbean, or if you decide to come back home, you'll be beyond prepared, more so than anybody else in tourism, for the roles and the positions here. The finished product of what we're going to create here will put St. Vincent on the world stage as one of the absolute top tourism destinations anywhere to go in the world.
Minister of Tourism, the Honorable Carlos James, visited during the recruitment process and shared how this highly anticipated expansion of the tourism industry in St. Vincent and the Grenadines will impact the economy and the country as a whole.
What would happen initially is that once the rehabilitative work is done on the new Beaches Resort, which is the old Bookament Bay Resort at Bookament, we will see Sandals immediately moving these trained persons back to St. Vincent, where they would have already received the training and the certification according to the Sandals standards, and they will then move immediately into their tenure of employment here on island. This is a fantastic opportunity, and tourism is a significant contributor to our gross domestic product. It's a significant contributor across the different sectors, including linkages and opportunities for farmers. Remember, Sandals said that they're looking to work with all of the stakeholders in the industry, but also outside of the industry, farmers and agro-processors who would supply them with fresh produce and seafood and the likes. And this is a fantastic opportunity for our country, and I'm happy to see this initiative bear fruit, and I must commend also the Minister of Finance, Camilo Gonzalez, who has been working closely with the Executive Chairman, Adam Stewart of Sandals International, to bring in this to realization. Now have St. Vincent as one of the leading Caribbean destinations, and people are excited to travel. They want to come to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and we have to create the environment, we have to create the atmosphere that would welcome persons here. and also within the COVID-19 protocols, but put in measures in place that can facilitate the relaunch of the industry that is going to see significant benefits to all of the stakeholders. It's about the trickle-down effect, it's about the economy and getting people back out to work and getting some significant income on the tables of the taxi operators, the tow operators, and everyone who's involved in the industry. And I'm quite excited about what is likely to be the relaunch of our tourism industry. But for now, Sandals, what we're doing is a starting point to that, and I'm quite excited about that as well.
Tourism has many benefits to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It creates growth and a boost in economic activities, infrastructure development, job creation, entrepreneurship, and is a source of foreign exchange earnings. Supermarkets and vendors, bars, restaurants, taxis, tour guides, hotels, service providers, and many more all benefit directly from income gained through the tourism industry. Taxes collected from visitors to our country help St. Vincent's economy and its growth. Tourism is everyone's business. Live it, love it, embrace it.
Tourism is everyone's business. Yeah. Live it, love it, embrace it.
Good customer service is essential to the tourism industry in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Treat your customers with respect and resolve issues amicably.
Hi, good day. This is not the room I reserved. The room I reserved had a view. Okay, I am so sorry to hear that. Can you come to front desk so that we can assist you better? All right, I'll come down. Thank you. I am so sorry for your inconvenience. Can we upgrade you to another room with a view? Yes, I will be fine. Thank you. Could you hold 1 second for me so that I can get that ready for you? There you go. Thank you. You're welcome.
Good customer service means being polite, attentive, honest, and putting the needs of the customer first.
Tourism is everyone's business. Yeah. Live it, love it, embrace it.
Our environment is important in so many ways.
We all have a part to play to preserve it, as it's where we live, swim, enjoy, and use for many recreational activities. Moreover, it's a habitat which protects the ecosystem and also acts as a protection to our coastline.
Protect the reefs and beaches as they protect you.
The mangroves, Tobago Keys Marine Park, corals, rivers, and beaches are all of ours to protect. Protecting these sites from pollution can benefit the tourism sector. We need to exercise proper waste management practices via our businesses, hotels and restaurants, tour operators, public transport, and taxi drivers.
Practice recycling.
Use the garbage dump at Diamond for your industrial waste. Enjoy your beach picnics, river limes, but please remember to take away your garbage.
Play a part. Respect your environment. Don't leave it up to someone else.
Tourism is everyone's business. Yeah. Live it, love it, embrace it.
Good customer service is essential to the tourism industry in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Hi. Hello. Excuse me.
Treat your customers with respect and resolve issues amicably. Good customer service means being polite, attentive, honest, and putting the needs of the customer first.
Hi, good afternoon. Can I help you?
May I have a beer, please?
What? But I was here first, and you just went and served him?
Tourism is everyone's business.
Sorry for keeping you waiting. The bar was so busy. However, can I offer you a drink on the house?
Tourism is everyone's business. Yeah. Live it, love it, embrace it.
Beautiful white and black sand beaches, lush mountains and valleys, rivers, hidden waterfalls, and multiple islands and islets. St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We are a friendly people, welcoming tourists from all over the world with exotic boutique and luxury hotels and a hospitable business environment. Let's make all tourists welcome at our international airport, on cruises, on yachts, on sailboats, on land and sea tours, at beach limes, at our restaurants, shops and bars, and at our national festivals. St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Tourism is everyone's business. Live it, love it, embrace
Tourism
it.
is everyone's business. Yeah. Live it, love it, embrace it.
Good customer service is essential to the tourism industry in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Engage your customers politely and with respect. Stay within the guidelines of the Taxi Association and perform best practice when engaging the customer. Await your turn. The dispatcher will beckon you to your next customer. Approach the customer one at a time. Show a positive attitude and do not rush them.
Have your customers' best interests at heart. Let them feel welcomed and satisfied. Be available, reliable, and willing to help at all times.
Tourism is everyone's business. Yeah. Live it, love it, embrace it.